live. So this is,
Yeah, here we are back.
yeah,
It's EduVerse Festival. We're going all day or maybe some all night for some of you. We just had a great session with some pioneers in EdTech and passionate educators. So definitely want to check out our conversation with Vladimir, Nick, Mark, and Vance. And now we're pleased to be back again. We have Bree McEwen here. We have David Bostanik coming in a minute or two, and a bunch more people on their way. So stay with us. Thanks for being here. Of course, DJ Boom Boom is here co-hosting with me. How's it going, Boom?
it's going great. Like I
Are
was
you
saying,
enjoying it? You're
yeah, it's so
enjoying it.
exciting to see the bold ideas come to life. And who would have thought that we'll find ourselves all of a sudden talking to all these people that we admire in education and bringing them together. And here is David. Uh, that's
Hey, there's David.
that feels
Hi
great.
there. Good evening.
Hi,
I don't
David.
recognize you without your VR headset.
Oh, okay.
Oh
Excuse
no, that wasn't a criticism. I just realized actually that I haven't ever seen a picture of you without it.
There. Maybe I should have my.
Usually
do
it's right
my
here.
passport. How about my passport picture? I'll do my passport picture like this.
Yeah, they may have an issue with that. No, it's not usually covering here. Usually you got it up here. You're the first person I ever saw with their profile picture with the VR up on top. I was like, that's
Well, it's hard to
gangster.
take the picture and not
That's
see what I was doing.
Web3 gangster right there. Yeah.
Yeah, soon we'll be like this. It's like 2 eyes here and 4 eyes here, and we're like in the metaverse IRL.
But
Well,
boom,
the
the
focus-
timing could not be better with David and Bree. So the reason you two are here has nothing to do with the fact that you both know a lot about the same types of stuff. It's the to do something like this internationally. I mean, David, you're in the UAE, if I'm not mistaken. Bree is in Canada. So Boom is in New England. I'm in France. So but as it happens, the times you wanted, it's really, really cool because both of you teach with VR. Not everybody who comes here has that experience, and we're quickly entering an era where it's just going to become so much more commonplace. I think we all know that. So wow, it's going to be really great to talk to you. And Boom, I think we want them to each introduce themselves first. Do you want to start that part of the show here?
So the format for today is mostly we get acquainted, and we can't go really deep into details. But for that, we have started a podcast called Learning with Boom and Fluency, and we definitely want to invite each one of you for a deep dive into what you are doing and everything that you want to share with the world. So today we'll have 3-4 questions that we want to kind of go over. And the first one is just tell us a little bit about your background, and then what is it that you're working on right now that you're the most excited about? Okay. Yeah. So Bree, let's start with you.
Sure. I am currently an associate professor in the Institute of Communication, Culture, Information, and Technology at University of Toronto, Mississauga. And then previously, last year, I was at DePaul University, where with Dr. Paul Booth, I had co-founded the Virtual Augmented Reality Communication Lab. I hold a Communication Studies PhD in social interaction. And as people started social interacting in mediated channels, I started studying that as well. And so VR for me is kind of that next leap of how people will be communicating in the future and how we can use that for pedagogy purposes. So I taught a couple classes in VR at DePaul, and here at U of T, I'm looking forward to setting up my new lab and new courses. So I'm teaching virtual environments in winter here.
Whoa.
Yeah. You see, David, there's a lot of overlap. Where do you see how much they're both doing they have in common? It's interesting.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, David, over to you.
Hi, I'm teaching English Foundations at a higher colleges of technology here in the UAE. I've been here for the last 10 years. And prior to that, I've taught in Mexico, Saudi, Ukraine, and Sri Lanka. I have an MA TESOL degree, but I'm most interested at the moment in trying to find ways of introducing VR into higher education. With the COVID crisis, which has also resulted in budget crises, I'm a little bit unsuccessful at the moment, but I keep hammering away. I keep trying to convince my employer of the utility of at least piloting, because in any case you have to pilot something before you can go full bore into something. But what I found that I can do is try to get faculty members interested in VR, because even before you can pilot it, you need to find people who are, interested in trying that, and you have to sort of do a little bit of, forward planning and getting people aware of, and for them to see it as more than something that's just gaming. So that's my current struggle, is trying to make my employer and faculty colleagues aware of the utility of it in general terms, so that they could then try it and then see how it would work for them, whether it be engineering or media studies or health sciences. So that's where I am at the moment.
Oh, David, thanks so much for bringing it up. And that kind of reminds me that the reason why we want to put together this community, this DAO of innovative teachers, so that we can come to each other with our struggles also, and use the collective resources and ideas, etc., to resolve, because among all of us coming up with the ways to have these conversations, or maybe the multitude of institutions that we have these conversations with, etc. Yeah, this can be absolutely invaluable. So for everyone also who's watching it recorded, don't just say about the things that when you come to the DAO, to the community, the things that are great. Yeah, also share what you're struggling with, because I can't wait to see actual cases where we collectively help to resolve the struggles for each other. That's basically why we are doing this.
Well, I've heard people say that we're at the Windows 95 stage of VR. There's a lot of agreement and disagreement with that statement, but it does seem to be a fair one in that we're still very much at the ground level. It's got a solid start. I mean, it's not just theoretical; it's being used at the enterprise level in training, education. So it's solid. It's already out there, but in terms of applications, we're still very much at the starting stage. So that's a cool thing.
So true. And every event, right? I think it was lacking just awareness and people just understanding how advanced the technology is already. And then we have Meta, Meta now,
Facebook,
doing the thing. And on one hand, it's great because, it raises the awareness. On the other hand, it makes people so much more skeptical, a lot of people, because of the history, and they're like, okay, your metaverse is now about this and that, and there's again these cliches and opinions.
I'd love to hear. I know we have sort of questions formulated, but maybe for these folks, we can kind of just go into this area, especially because they both know. I'd love to hear Bree's comments about this, because when you say there's criticism and skepticism, I feel like it's misplaced. The skepticism should be about how messed up Facebook is like, and firms are just trying to make money and their idea of kind of taking over everything there. The skepticism, unfortunately, I see so much more of is there's not going to be a metaverse, or it's not really ready, or it's never going to happen. And I feel like that's dangerous combination if you're like trusting Facebook and thinking that there's not going to be, a need to try to figure out how we're going to carve out our space, especially in education, protect our identities. If we're really going to have these decentralized, autonomous organizations, can they really exist when you've got companies coming in? What do we have to do? And how does virtual reality come into that? So Bree, I know you've been writing about this sort of stuff. So can you tell us your feelings about it?
Yeah, so I'm generally pretty positive on social technologies, right? I do think there are issues and problems and concerns, and those aren't always the platform's fault. Sometimes they just highlight things that were already an issue in the world. But I also think with the idea of a metaverse, we have this opportunity at this moment where the hardware is getting pretty good. There's still some technical things to be worked out. The software inside is getting pretty reasonable. But what happens if we allow one company, and Facebook has the money and power to do it within the market, right? So what happens if we allow one company to be everything in this space, right? They are a hardware company, they are a social space company, they are an advertising company primarily, right? And so then we'd be taking this business model, which we know is part of what's been problematic in social interactions, right? We've commodified social interactions in a way that we have never been able to before. And that I don't think was necessarily a good idea, right? Because now we're selling everyone's interactions with their social groups, et cetera. And so if we take that model into the metaverse and we don't build things in to protect data, to protect, right? If I'm thinking about classroom applications, right? To protect students, et cetera, then we are now commodifying every interaction, right? We're commodifying everything you do because you can't exist in a virtual reality space without becoming data, right? In a matrix kind of way to think about it. But everything has to be collected and recorded in order for the space to work, right? And so now, if all of that is within one headset and one login, I'm very concerned about that. And actually, we made some decisions last summer when we were purchasing headsets for a full class, right? So we made a 30 headset purchase, which for an academic felt like a lot of money. So we made a 30 headset purchase. And we didn't go with Oculus, even though personally in my house I have an Oculus. Right? We didn't go with Oculus because I couldn't imagine asking students to sign up for a Facebook account. And I also didn't know, I was in the States at the time, but similar countries have similar laws. I didn't know how that would play with FERPA in the United States, right? If you're asking students, if you're requiring students to be in a headset and you don't know where the data is going and they have to sign in, with headsets where they can just sort of be and then they're not logged in, like I feel a little better about that, even though there's some recording there somewhere. And so I think this is the moment, is basically the point, is that it's not there yet. We're at the early adopter phase. But if it takes off, and I think that it could, right? We don't want to turn around a decade from now and be like, oh, we really should have made some different decisions.
Absolutely.
In 2020.
To me, that's the most important thing to talk about today. I'm so happy we're talking about it.
Yeah. And a lot of us have watched The Social Dilemma. Yeah, it's just like a symbol. Like we know all of that, and then Social Dilemma is just like kind of sums it up. And you hear there from the people who were building Facebook and Twitter and all these things. And I think they're pretty, I hope they are pretty sincere when they're saying that they had no idea, when they were doing it, what it will lead to. But at the same time, now that we have this history, we cannot say that we had no idea. Yeah, we have pretty good idea of what it can lead to. And so now it's up to us to kind of stand up for the new iteration. And I think the definition of Web3, it's you own your data, and you very clearly decide what you want to share and how it is being used. And it should be in the smart contracts, where you can really look into the source code and see exactly what's happening there. And will Facebook, Meta, play by these rules is a big question, especially concerning the history, and the presentation of Meta. It was such beautifully filmed, and it was so filled with hope and promise. If it was the guy that we didn't know before, and it was like a new person, it'll be so easy.
It's almost like, thank goodness it is him.
Yeah,
I mean, because if it was somebody else that we thought, hey, well, let's trust this guy.
That's a really good point. When it's Zuckerberg, when it's Mark Zuckerberg, we're all like, ooh, maybe we should think about this. But if it was someone else, we're like, that's great.
Yeah. It's like, who would buy a cookbook from Dr. Hannibal Lecter, rebranding himself as a culinary specialist? You'll have to take it sort of with a grain of salt, if not a glass of Chianti.
And I do think, though, because I'm fairly tangential to the industry, right? I'm in academia. I do think, though, that it might not matter what we think about Facebook's leadership, right? They're employing much of the talent, right? They're finding the programs. They'll buy out the programs that are good, much the way that they bought WhatsApp and Instagram, et cetera, things that they think compete with them. So we can't rely on just public critique of Mark Zuckerberg to solve the problems we need solved in how we could fully integrate into the metaverse.
So we can use it to hold them accountable. I mean,
we can use it to hold them accountable, but we could use it to hold the people who are making policies about monopolies.
Yeah.
Right. And the people who make decisions about communication channels, like the FCC, right? Think about this as a communication channel, not a platform for games. And then
it's going to depend who's in government.
Different regulatory agencies, which they don't want. They're a tech company, not a media company. Why? Because we regulate media.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, that's all right. So, what do we do? What is the most effective collective answer to this potential threat that you guys see?
You mean about the Zuckerverse? Well, not to be facetious, but I'm actually hopeful, because you have the Zuckerverse and you've got the metaverse. Not to be facetious, but there's slight difference between them. I mean, Mark might have the big bucks and be the 800-pound gorilla in the room, but you've got, for example, platforms that are also diving into similar, more professional, as well as social aspects of the metaverse, like Engage XR, and HTC Vive. They both have platforms that they're trying to not necessarily compete with Zuck's gamified metaverse, but to use it for professional purposes, training, education. So there are alternatives to not only the Quest headsets, but to Meta itself. And I think as time goes by and people pilot different projects at different universities and schools and companies, there'll be a lot of data. But if we don't start piloting, we won't have any data, so that 10 years from now we can look back and say, oh, we should have done it differently, or what have you. You got to get, and to do that, you've got to get sets on heads. And to do that, you've got to get sets on heads of heads, those heads of department. You've got to get the headsets on people who control the purse strings, who control the directional strings of a school, of a university. Because if you get them on board, then it doesn't matter if it's budget crunch times or not. And then work with people who are interested and or experienced with XR. Maybe they'll find out that it doesn't work best for where they want to go as an institution. But until we start piloting more, we won't know if we're going in the right direction, because you can't go anywhere unless you get in the car and turn the key.
Yeah. I want to. Sorry, I really want to hear Bree's response to that. We have people coming in 10 minutes. They want the link. I'd love to bring more of our speakers.
Jace, I think we just bring them over
and Bree, David, stay as long as you want. The longer the better for us. But we understand if you have obligations, things you have to do. But I really want to hear Bree's reaction to what David just said. And David, I also want you, if you could, to talk about XR, because I don't really think I understand that probably is the way that I should. So Bree, go ahead, and I'm going to go let these other folks into the waiting room.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was just going to say, David mentioned the Vive, the HTC product. And that's actually what we ended up using in my class,
cool.
And their Vive Sync platform. And they were incredible to work with, because they actually came in, they got my students' reaction to their product, to the class, like into the virtual classroom. They were there, we were there. So that was a really kind of fun way to go about it. But also I love that phrase, the Zuckerverse versus the Metaverse.
The Zuckerverse.
I think I might steal that.
We should use that. We should totally use that. Yeah, I can't wait to see Apple go into the game, and I think creating a really good, I hope healthy counter force, because we know what they've been doing with like privacy and ASCAP not to track, which has become kind of a fun game for me now. Like each time my iPhone's like, do you want to allow this app to track you? And I'm like, nope, I don't.
And so Apple's another one where they try to have a closed, kind of a walled garden, right? To dig back to 90s internet terms. And so what I'd love to see is a model where programs are agnostic to headsets, right? So like I can run the same thing on my Apple computer that I could look at. It might look a little different, little browser differences, etc. And then I can choose from a variety of programs, and we could have all this talent competing on what's the best program in these models. And then so we're competing on headsets, we're competing on programming and applications, and then it's delivered through some sort of interface like Steam, etc. But I'd love to see all of those pieces being separate, and that means people have to work together in those spaces to make that happen. But I think that's a better model for innovation and competition than one company has this vertical integration of everything. I get why that works for Facebook, right? If I was Facebook, I was like, this is the thing we should do, so we can own all the pieces and it all works together very nicely. But for the rest of us, it would be better if it was a more competitive space.
Yeah. I just want to jump in, if I could, just for 1 second. I mean, I'll never forget the feeling I had when I first joined a conversation on Facebook in a group of teachers, from different parts of the world. This is, 2000, I don't know, 2004 or 5 or 6. I can't remember anymore. No, more like 2000, 2008. But anyway, just the, the feeling was that we had this independent, like, decentralized, we had this space, it was ours, and so like Boom was saying, like, we have this history, we know now, so maybe it's a good thing, right? That because if we know the feeling of having a community, and we know also now the feeling of having it where we can't always get in touch with each other because the algorithms and like all this stuff, and this time we're not going to let it happen, right? We can be in the metaverse, and like David was saying, it doesn't have to be meta. Like let's see. I think the biggest mistake, tell me if you guys agree or not, would be just to assume that, like, a DAO is, Web3 is this way and everything's going to be blockchain. I think we need to be, much more concerned about it.
Yeah, I hope we do move more towards sort of a platform agnostic metaverse, because, for example, when VR first started in consumer market, I have iPhone. I couldn't even use the Gear VR to put my phone into the little headset because it was Apple. I can't use what's the new HTC Flow? Yeah, the Flow. I can't use the Flow because I need a Samsung or I need an Android phone. So if they were more on a level playing field, then it wouldn't matter if you had an Apple phone or a Samsung or whatever, you'd be able to dive in. It seems to be more like two different teams. You're either, on one side or the other side. They don't seem to be meeting just yet. I don't know if that's a decision, corporate level, or if it's a coding thing, or what. That is a problem.
I've run into that with part of how I got into this space was teaching an augmented reality class in Chicago, and it was about experiencing Chicago. It was our first year immersion class. It was about experiencing Chicago through the lens of augmented reality, and there were just enough. Chicago History Museum has some great projects, and there was just enough projects in Chicago that were going on that you could do that. But students are coming in, their first year, they just got there, right? Students are coming in with their own devices. You were, in the class description, you were required to have a smartphone to take the class, or if you didn't, we figured out. But I can't require them to have this product or that product. So the only thing, the experiences that we did had to be things that were across these two platforms with these applications. And so some things worked and some things didn't. But I think, similar with VR, if we think about, again, projecting way into the future, but if we think about VR becoming a more common household item, like a more common personal technology, then as, universities, right, we're so far beyond the model where we're like, students have to buy a laptop and it has to be this laptop. We know students are bringing one-to-one computing with them, and we need to work with multiple platforms. And so in this case, right, I could have students all over the world in one class in a VR headset. That could be amazing. But can I tell them they must buy this headset if they already have something else, right? I would like programs, to work across these technologies.
Well, that's why I think you're going to see an emergence or a growth of web-based VR, VR Lite, different ways of referring to it. For example, there's Verbella.com, which really was designed without headsets in mind, although you can now use it to a certain extent with headset. But you're still immersed in a virtual environment, interacting with other avatar-based characters in sort of real time. And so you feel that sense of presence of immersion, even though you don't have a headset and you're not in virtual reality. And engage, you might want the teacher to have a headset, but students could access lesson on their mobile. They could get into the lesson on their tablet or their PC or Mac. So there is a certain degree of bridging the gap, but not to the extent that I would like to see. But it depends on what program you choose.
True story. And guys, isn't this the definition of the metaverse? Is that it should be available and open to everyone, just like the universe. Like if someone says, a company says I own the universe, and the name of my company is a universe company, or let's split the universe between this company and this company, would we say no, that's not happening. And in many ways, I think with countries, they say people vote with their feet. This is another reason why I think we should stick together and make this DAO community of innovative educators with our voices, because collectively we can decide that we're not going with this, like Bree was saying, but we are going with this, and this is why, and kind of come up with a list of reasons so that more educators kind of follow, and then these companies will hopefully, if they want to collaborate and work with us, they will have to make some changes. Maybe that's also the way for us to have a say in where it's going. Guys, the question to you, in your opinion, and I know it's hard always when you're pick one, but if we were to pick one, the most exciting technology / innovation that educators right now you think should pay attention to, what would that be? David, you want to take it?
Well, I'm going to stick with virtual reality, because if you look at how a number of different industries are doing anything from onboarding with HR to training new employees to upskilling, training for oil and gas, health sector, military. VR is being used at multiple levels, and so my idea as a educator, university level, is that we need to get our graduates, our future graduates, to the point where they can not only survive in that type of work environment, but thrive, and not only to be able to put on a headset, but those who are interested.
Hi.
There you go.
Classic.
Those who are not only classic.
It's not an internet conference with a cat.
Yeah,
It isn't. No.
they
So
love
not
it.
only those who are interested in able to use the VR, but those who are able to code and program, because you might have the next Oculus CEO equivalent, not just somebody who can use a headset and a pair of controllers. So we're getting to the point where employers are demanding, or certainly as a desired qualification, being able to use VR. So in education, if you use backward design, how do we get them to that point? And I don't think everybody is having that conversation of how can we get to the point where this is going to be done.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a guest coming. What wonderful timing. Jennifer's here. Hey, Jennifer.
Hey there, everybody.
How are you?
Good to join this group. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Good to have you with us. This is Bree and David. Jennifer, could you introduce yourself? Tell us. And you've never met DJ Boom Boom Boom. Jennifer Boom.
Hey, that's a fun name to put a smile on my face.
Yeah, and our new podcast, which all of you in right now, and everyone who's a speaker today, you're going to be invited to be our guests. Is called Learning Boom and Fluency, because that's how we feel learning, ought to be, right? There's that boom and then the flow, right? You get really hooked and excited, right? Or it's like the boom and then the lava, right? Is the flow that comes out. But Jennifer and I go super far back. So happy you're here, Jennifer. If you could tell us about who you are, and especially what you're working on now, what you're doing, that would be great.
Hi, guys. So I'm Jennifer Lebedev. I've started out as Jennifer ESL, then I stayed Jennifer ESL, but with the channel name English with Jennifer. So YouTube is still my main platform. I've been online since 2007. I came from the classroom, started dabbling in all kinds of things outside of YouTube. So private lessons, group lessons. I've explored all kinds of platforms, but basically I'm just a one-person show, and I'm just an independent online teacher. I still give private lessons, group lessons. I love live instruction. That's one thing I share with Jace. I'm not a very, very different performance style, but the live instruction is what I feed off of. So he can relate to that. I just can't produce content. I need the interaction. I need connection with my students. And so that's why I always have tried to strike that balance. I also blog for teachers. So I produce materials for teachers and learners. But yeah, right now, what am I doing? Just trying to, adapt and stay alive in 2020. Because I've been on so long, I just want to make sure people actually still remember who I am and what I do.
Oh, of course they do. And
I stay relevant.
Well, we're talking about virtual spaces, and I feel like people like you and me, I'm very hopeful that do have followings and people who we've banded ourselves in this way, like can have more opportunities than we currently have. In a virtual space and combined spaces. And the question that Boom just started asking, each of us sort of go around, each of you, is a really good one for you, Jennifer, too. I know Jennifer was like, why am I coming here with all these VR people? And it's true, David and Bree are kind of VR people in a way, not to pigeonhole them, because of course that's not all they are. But I really believe that you'll see very quickly why you're here. With the question that Boom was asking. So Boom, you want to put that question out again? Sorry if I interrupted the flow there.
That was a beautiful interruption. Yeah, the question is, speaking about the technology, what is, if you were to choose one thing, technology/innovation tool that you feel like educators should know about and should use right now, what would that one thing be?
One thing.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have to go with the video, I guess. Video, actually, no, I'll change it. Video/audio, because there's still a lot of camera shy teachers out there who don't want to be in front of the camera. So it's, I think video is great to have, but you can still do audio. But it's like that was the challenge of coming online, being a classroom teacher, and then also producing materials. I had textbook writing experience, and that has influenced a lot of my material making. But it's like bringing it alive, though. How do you make it alive? You got to have the richness of material, and it's just the one thing you need to give a voice to your material and put your personal stamp on it, because it's one thing to work with a textbook, and I still believe in the value of textbooks. I'm not going to totally jump on them because I've authored some, but it's how do you bring it alive? How do you personalize it? And how do you really make it meaningful? And it's just only by connecting with my audience on a personal level, even if I don't have one-on-one conversations with them, like directly, all of the thousands of people who've watched a video of mine, it's like trying, how else can you put your voice to your materials? It's like you gotta bring it. It's that dimension of putting that personal stamp on it. I don't know how else to explain it, but
yeah, that's what I'm talking about, though. How about an avatar?
It could work.
For
the shy people, yes, there have been some fun apps in the past, weren't there? Like when you post, like, oh gosh, was it not telegrams, but there were those apps for a while, and they just didn't take off, and they should have. Of like even students being able to use those apps, and they had the avatars on the video, so they didn't appear, but their avatar appeared, but they used their voice.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So if I have to limit it, then video, not necessarily with you, but the audio has to be there.
One of my students comes to class, Zoom class, as Kermit the Frog. I love Kermit. Kermit's there. Kermit's making faces, moving around. I can talk right to Kermit. It's great.
Yeah.
Avatars are great for, particularly in VR, because students who otherwise would be shy to turn on their webcam or to speak up in class and be seen by others can sort of hide behind an avatar of various levels of exactness. And I think even a cartoonified avatar for some students gives them a level of comfort, and then that's what we're looking for in the class. And
no, absolutely. I mean, I feel like as language teachers, maybe more so than some other teachers, we try to get students, speaking another language is like another identity, like you try to, shadow the actors, and you can be different, change your name in the class. Look, that's what this avatar virtual reality stuff is all about to me. The good side of it. Again, it's like, it's not about, it's good or bad, right or wrong. It's like everything, books, and then the internet, right? There's certain books and certain places online that, maybe we want to steer you to as teachers and so forth. Right. But I mean, I really strongly believe that there's big benefits looking ahead in virtual spaces where students and teachers can feel more like, they're interacting in this way that's sort of outside themselves. And why not? I mean, and then, they'll go to the supermarket and see their families, right? And that's different. And if you're in the classroom, it's like unnatural in a lot of ways. There's too much real life going on to like try to really pretend and role play, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. True story. And to address Jennifer, your concern, like, this VR people, and educators that actually work with. This is exactly the conversation that we need to have. This is the most necessary conversation. I wish we also, and I'm sure we will also have like the developers, even more technical people that are building this technology, work with us, educators, work with parents, work with kids to create this together. Yeah, so it's absolutely necessary. This is why
Well,
we're
we have
doing.
to make sure that happens. Otherwise, it's the Pearsons of the world, right? That are going to be doing it.
Or
And
Facebook's, yeah.
Facebook Ed, or whatever, Meta Ed. It can't happen. Look, we got to be the ones who are doing it.
Yeah.
I just imagined like a Facebook Pearson Blackboard mashup, and
No.
Well, to defend the big publishers, I still have a foothold in that world. And
Sorry,
I think...
I didn't mention by name, but I certainly.
But you know what it is? It's one of the things I have too many eggs in too many baskets, but it's also how I operate, and I believe in all these interconnections, and so I like being that bridge between all the various subworlds of ESL. I know what it was like. I haven't been in the classroom for a while, but I came from the classroom, so I still feel that I do have the heart of a classroom teacher. I remember what it was like, the joys and the challenges of that. But with going through the textbook writing experience too, and knowing what they've gone through, I'm happy that I've been recognized because of my work online, and they've brought me in. So it's nice to be that small, tiny little voice within that larger organization. So I feel like, no, they haven't shut the door or shut the window. They are listening. It's hard. There's a lot of voices going on, and it's a big conversation. So.
I wish my voice was listened to sometimes. I feel that as an EFL teacher, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a coder, I'm not an IT person. So I sort of sometimes feel that my voice is not necessarily ignored, but it just sort of blends in with the background noise of people who have suggestions in any organization. Maybe if I were a programmer and was speaking from actual extensive experience of more than just being a user, then maybe I would be listened to. I don't know.
I was just having the thought of, again, too many eggs and lots of baskets, and also the great quote that I love from Jerry Maguire when his mentor says, I have failed as much as I've succeeded. And that's, I feel like my whole story is like, I've tried so many things over the past 15, 20 years. Lots of experiments, and the majority of them didn't pan out the way that I wanted to, but some have. But without those experiments, how will we know? And that speaks to having a voice, because sometimes one of those many attempts actually turn into something, then your voice is heard. Like if I'd never tried YouTube, it's just like, let me try, let's see what happens. Boom. Okay, great. It actually worked. Other things didn't, so I think, seeing a tool excites me as a teacher, and I started immediately thinking, how can I use that tool? Whether it's a recording device, an avatar, I'm like, what can I do with that to support my teaching? Again, not to replace, because as we know, technology aids us; it doesn't replace us. That's the way it should be. So, but I'm all for experimenting, and some of those experiments just may work, but if we don't have the courage to take risks and fail, then your voice won't be heard. So go out there, experiment, explore, and, see what happens.
True story. And now the new iteration of this, I think, learning from each other's iterations can be so helpful, because we don't have to make the same mistakes anymore. I can say, hey, Jace, have you tried TikTok? And Jace can say, yeah, I tried this and this and that. And I'm like, okay, let me try this and this and this now, and tell you and show you how it works. And then if something takes off, let's create characters together, and let's explore more, etc. So I think this is also really hopeful, not happening so much in education. Like how many it's just personal friendships and connections right now. Like I'm just like, I feel like we are friends with Jace. This is why we're always like bouncing ideas of each other and inspire each other, etc. But
this is what I was saying a little bit before Jennifer arrived, is that and Jennifer, I think you remember this too, like the early days where it was easier to have communities on Facebook and even YouTube. The comments, there was more order. The platforms were trying to get us there, so there was so much more organic reach and so much more love they were showing us to let us all gather together. So we just need to do that again, and I feel like we can do it differently. And now we know we don't have to, not even we don't have to be. I don't think it's possible anymore. I mean, I'm the co-admin of the biggest, most active group of English teachers on Facebook in the world. We have over 300,000 people in the group, and I can put something up. Doesn't matter if it has a YouTube link in it, or there's no link in it, or there's a hashtag, there's no hashtag. 5 people might see it, or 19 people might see it. In the past, 800 people saw it, right? So we need to go somewhere where it's not just random. We can really just know we're going to be there together and can learn and help each other.
Yeah, so true. Bree, what's your take on the question? I don't think you you spoke on that. The most exciting technology that educators should kind of be aware of right now.
Well, I had a bunch of different ideas as we were talking, but then, as Jennifer was talking about experiments and avatars and trying new things, I think that what's potentially very exciting about virtual reality, and I wouldn't, send everyone like, oh, you should teach a class in VR. It's got a lot of hiccups and things, right? You really have to be prepared for that. But I think what is exciting is that we're not tied to the same affordances that we're tied to in learning management systems. We're not tied to the same affordances we're tied to in the face-to-face classroom. We could imagine a very different way to deliver education and educational content and engage with each other. And in some ways we're doing that, right? I've seen some really interesting things with 3D simulations that I'm like, oh, that'd be great. Especially for students who are, clinical students, right? That they could do their clinics in a VR simulation. I've seen great things with AR training, right? Where it's like an overlay, right, on what you want to do. But I think steps too. So when you're talking about an avatar, it reminded me that one of our struggles in the VR classroom was that the avatar selection was really limited, and I get it, right? It's a beta product. There's only so many variations you can do at the very first stage, but we had some issues with like weight, right? Like shape. Like we didn't all want to be skinny because that's not who we are in real life, and yet that was the only choice, right? So that was one, and another was a student who was non-binary. And when you walk into the VR classroom, the first thing it asked you for an avatar was, are you male or female? And so I the student and I really talked it out because it was graduate class too. So it was like, okay, let's talk about this and let's think about what this experience is and what does that do to a student. And so we came up with something for them. But even if there had been an option to be like a robot or a bear or a blue ball or something, right? Like we could solve that problem. Why like our brain goes to like, oh, I want people to be able to represent themselves as, a person, but that you don't have to. And I think that's where we need to move is like, what do we not have to do anymore? What was keeping us from our learning outcomes and our goals in the design that we're stuck with, right? In terms of classrooms and online spaces that we have now, what could we do that's completely different? And I think imagination, which isn't a tech thing, but I think imagination is going to be key to really taking advantage of the possibilities here.
It's so interesting. Yeah, guys, I was just thinking that with NFTs and blockchain, like we saw that first it was artists who kind of got really into it, and benefited from it in like an incredible way, some of them, and it's such a hopeful thing, and there are communities, etc. Now I see it going into fashion, and like this week it's the Art Basel in where is it, in Miami, I think, and now it's all about digital fashion, that you don't have to buy things, we don't have to overproduce. We can just have this digital things that we looks like we are wearing them, but we are not, and what it brings. And then why not us be the next kind of group of professionals, educators that like take on with this it's
We
gotta be.
we are that group.
Oh,
We're just getting started.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just building. We're just rallying everybody here. This is how this is the origin story we're creating here right now.
That's awesome. And on
We've
that
got
note,
some new faces, some new people here.
Hello.
We are in this.
Hello.
First of all, we have greatness in the house. We have SST. We have Shelly Sanchez. I always say Terrell, and you know why? I don't know if you remember why I mispronounced your last name. It's not really fair. It's for rhyming purposes. But I know you are
I'm
Terrell.
totally okay with that, and I love the video where you're like,
It's just Terrell.
SST.
SST, but Terrell doesn't work as well as Terrell.
It
You know,
doesn't.
Terrell, ring the bell, what are you gonna sell?
Exactly.
Everybody's doing well. So yeah, it definitely works better. And we've got Mark Speakadelic in the building. Woo!
Hello. Good to see you. Good to see all of you.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys. So how do we integrate folks in? I'm glad we have all of you here at once. We understand you may have other commitments, and there's no pressure to stay for a certain amount of time. The longer you guys are here, the better. Obviously, our conversations are going to be people with different experiences, different parts of the world. So boom, this is Shelly, because Shelly was the first guest on Learning with Boom and Fluency, the new podcast show. Marek, I think you were chatting with on Facebook a little, but you haven't met. So Marek, this is Fedor, aka DJ Boom Boom. Where do we go now? Boom.
I think we ask Bree and David how much more time they have, and
Good.
kind of strategize from there.
Probably 12:30.
12:30. Oh yeah, so 10 more minutes. So why don't we ask our last important question? Ask the guys, Bree and David, and then they can snail that we call it any moment, leave quietly. What on some, I think it's in Clubhouse. Yeah, you leave quietly. And we'll focus on Jennifer, Shelly, and Marek.
Okay, good.
That question is, we are obviously building a community here. Who do you guys want to nominate, mention, who should be here with us? Some educators, philosophers, builders, anyone that you think deserves an attention, our podcast, so that they can tell us about their ideas. Yeah, that's it. Bree.
I'd say if I had to think of anyone based on what we've been talking about today, I would say maybe Matt Wren, who's the chair of the VR AR Association Chicago, because his company Bundle AR has been doing a lot with museums and educational content in augmented reality, and they're sort of moving towards VR, and they run a monthly series in Virbela as well. So I gave a talk in that space as well, which is a decent virtual environment.
Beautiful. David?
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, your cat muted you.
They are wont to do that, those felines.
Yeah. You're back.
My cat muted me.
Yeah.
I would recommend.
Of course,
my cat was trying to climb the Christmas tree, so I had to.
David, how many memes, how many cat meme things are happening? The cat coming through on the camera, the cat on the Christmas tree. What's next?
Well, now the cat's on the other side of the door, separated from me, so that's a problem. But as to who I'd recommend, definitely Daniel Dubosky Bryant, one of the co-founders of Educators in VR, operates out of Northern Wales. He would definitely be somebody to interview, because that's another large-scale organization that has been around for a couple of 3 years now. Like-minded individuals, regardless of what you teach, whether or not you're a complete noob or you're running a university media department or company. That would definitely be worth your while, and he would also then be able to recommend other people that he is interacting with. But that would be a good start. Or Steve Bambury, also here in Dubai, who used to head up IT in one of the private schools, but now is sort of independent. He used to have a CPD in VR website, also worth trying.
It's so incredible that we have this complementary knowledge of people and platforms, etc. And then teachers can go into VR people can reach more educators, etc. It is beautiful. Bree and David, thank you so much for spending the time.
Really, thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
That's been great. Yeah, we'll circle back with summaries, with the podcast, with the audio, with videos. Yeah, and also let you know about the future events and all the. It's not just about talking, definitely here. It's about doing things together. That's what we want to focus on. So we'll be focusing on that.
And if I could just say one thing quickly, it's not to belabor the point, but feeling as I've been recently kind of discouraged and saddened by how hard it is to meet with teachers in the spaces we used to meet because of what we were just talking about with algorithms and everything else. I starting to feel like we're in a privileged position now, because in the past it was great that we're meeting so many people, but it was kind of random. It's kind of like, oh yeah, this teacher here and this teacher. Now we know, right? Kind of know who's out there, and we have this opportunity, I feel, to make a more decentralized, autonomous organization. And if it happened any earlier, we maybe wouldn't know as much, right, as we do now, like as far as who's creating the best content, who's the most interactive, who's great with CPD, who's great with young kids, so I feel like this time of taking notes and making lists of teachers and let's get them all together, it's great timing. I feel really excited about it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much for your expertise.
Thank you, Bree. Thanks, David. Have a great rest of your day or evening.
It's 9:30 nighttime here.
Yeah, I know.
Enjoy your lunch.
It's a little earlier for
dinner.
Bree.
Yeah.
Hope we
take care. We'll talk to you soon.
For great dreams. Yeah. About
take care. Bye-bye.
Yours. Awesome. So Marek, Shelly, hi. Our first question that we ask is tell us a little bit about your background and what is the most exciting thing that you are working on at the moment.
Ladies first.
Oh, thank you, Marek. Well, I'm Shelly Sanchez-Terrell, and I'm just really excited to be here. Thank you both for inviting me back again. I've learned so much about English with Jennifer and Marek as well. Props to Jennifer for being one of the first on YouTube as an English teacher. I learned about that
in the house.
And Marek, I actually share a lot about you and your work with Jason on ESL webinars and TESOL, and also on our American TESOL channel. So I've followed your work as well. The most exciting thing I think right now, I'm working on a couple books and things, but really what I think is really exciting is your all's community and bringing all these great minds together, because we get to feed off of each other's energy. And also it's like a community of brains that are forward thinking and so open. So I'm really excited about that.
Best answer for us.
I feel like now we're on a mission. Shelly is watching and has her hopes on us, so we gotta do it right.
Oh, we will. We will. Because if we start doing it the wrong way, we'll just go to Shelly for guidance. So we'll be okay.
Oh yeah.
Well, also as Jennifer had said earlier, you try all these things and you eventually it becomes something amazing. So
yeah.
But it's like I'm saying, we've tried a lot of stuff, and it sucked that things didn't work so well. But now we can really get together and figure out what works and what's going to work going forward. I think that's what's really good.
And to comment on that, Jennifer, the best people that I know that I admire all this way. So it's not that you're, you were talking about it a little bit like, oh, maybe I'm like wearing too many hats, etc. No way. Like they all, we only know about what works on their timeline. This is why we want to kind of dig into the podcast. But like, how many thousands of things didn't work? And how many things they are trying, that fail, that of course like no one knows about, but that's definitely the one of the future skills is to know a lot about a lot. I can't even start to tell you as an educator, like a founder, how many things, like how many skills, marketing, design, website, it's the list is like probably will take 30 minutes to just like list all the things. If we think about it, like all the things that we need, like we learn how to do.
But do we have to continue using all those skills if we can get together? And some people who couldn't do marketing are doing the marketing, right? And that, I think it's important to make mistakes and get all those skills, but not to feel like for the rest of our days we're going to have to be alone doing all these different jobs to try to get our creative stuff out there into the world.
Plus, you gotta remember that our students are millennials and stuff. This is what they do now. They're used to wearing different hats, different like. This social media, that. I mean, for them, this is like the new normal. So
we're ahead of our time in our generation, is what it is. we suffer in the way. But
if you think about it, think about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that something like this was totally unusual. There's like, very few people in our industry would do something like this, like, connect from a few countries in one meeting and have a chat like that in a relaxed way, and then try to exchange ideas and so on. That was typical for a business world, but not for our industry, And suddenly, because of the whole world turning upside down because of the pandemic, it's become like totally normal for us. So it's like anything new that arrives now in the world of technology is just becoming for us like, an everyday thing. And that's I think that's the silver lining, one of the silver linings of the whole pandemic situation, because I myself had many reservations against online teaching. I used to think that it's ineffective. I used to think that it doesn't really work. And I didn't even touch it, to be honest, before the pandemic. I really, really detested it. And then when it all started in my country, and within 1 week, I had to turn my school upside down and chuck all the classes online. That was a challenge. And we sat down like on one day with a couple of my teachers, and we started testing different platforms because we had no idea what's better for us, what's the best tool we could get. So we spent a few hours installing, connecting on different platforms, and checking what's good, what works, what doesn't. And we finally chose one. It was like we didn't even know what we were doing. We were like, in the darkness, and then trying to find a way out. And we did. It was like a week or two, and we released everything, and it started, and it's working. And now it's like today. On Fridays, I have 2 classes. I still teach, even though I run school, because I'm really into teaching. I just love it. I can't really drop it. So I had 2 classes today. One of them was hybrid, and one of them was online, where it's usually face-to-face. Okay, so this is how it's all how we are all adapting. I had to, for one of them, I got a last-minute call that somebody's going to connect online to our face-to-face group because was tested positive. So we quickly had to rearrange. I had to open up laptop, put everything in the right place, and just start try to make it work. And then in the other group, we had like 5-6 students who are in quarantine, and they just couldn't come. So we decided, okay, so the whole group, like 8 or 9 of them, doesn't make sense to have a hybrid class, and we make an online. So it's like it's all happening in all possible ways now. And it's like an everyday thing. And if I just thought just before the meeting, gosh, 3 years ago, it was a different world. It was such a different world. It's just hard to believe how it's all changed.
Yeah.
What you're saying, go ahead.
Jennifer.
No, what I was going to say is makes me think about the adaptability and just being adaptable. And I think that's the biggest skill that I've learned is just how to adapt to survive, or even just to teach a lesson. I have been online since 2007. I started teaching privately since 2009 through Skype. Then all the different platforms came about. Right now, I mostly use Zoom. But that said, there are times when technology fails us, and you're trying this, trying that, skip to another platform, send another link to this, and it's just, what do you do? I've had like weird situations where, thank goodness, one person was in the US, but basically for some reason she lost audio, but we had the video. So I'm like, just call me. So we went to our phones to have audio so that we'd be talking to each other and we could still screen share. It's just like, you have to know what are your available tools, how can you use them to move forward. But I think adaptability is one. And as for teaching online, I mean, I came from the classroom. The first time I started teaching, and I was doing my teacher training way back when. It was like 96, goodness. And it's just, I fell in love with it. I just got up there and I just fell in love with what I was able to do and could do and wanted to do. I just knew that I was born to I wanted to teach. That's where I wanted to be. And I thought, well, what does it mean to like leave the classroom? And the reason why I started teaching online completely for free at first, because I missed it so much. But I couldn't go back to the classroom, and I was just looking for a way to do that. Again, how can I do it if I can't go back to a school right now? And that's when YouTube became a possibility. It's okay, what's this tool? How can I use it? And so anytime I see a tool, it's like, well, how can I use it to adapt and keep me going and reach? And as for I think every person who teaches, we teach because we see a need and we get so excited. It's the best joy to realize that you have something inside of you to meet that need, that we get joy from helping. And from the very beginning on YouTube, when I was so naive thinking, gosh, I should be accessible. I'm going to hold up my email address and invite people to write to me. It's like 2007. I was getting bombarded. I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized, I guess this isn't the way to go. I guess I should think of something else. But people were just reaching out left and right, students, teachers, professors, because they didn't have access to what I was able to give. They needed connection. They needed guidance. They needed answers. They just wanted discussion. And so they were using all available tools to them, email, YouTube, comment section. Of course, the load made me rethink my options. And how to meet that need. But that said, again, it's just when you see a need, you look at the tools in front of you and then you use them to meet that need. And for me, it's been online tools. And I still feel amazing connections with people, even through, social media and the virtual connections. And it still gets me going. If it weren't meaningful, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have been doing this all these years. It's still very much real and very much meaningful to me. And it's because, especially during the pandemic, yes, the numbers peaked. I was having these live events on another platform. We went up to like 500 students at a time. The need to connect, the need to access something that wasn't available, that need is so great. And for many people, it's still not available in person. And that's why
I have to jump in here, guys, because Jennifer is one of us, very small group of people that really got me started watching her videos on YouTube and seeing the comments and what she's describing, like that feeling that you're, when I say reach when you teach, like you say, well, I'm not a classroom teacher anymore, but didn't you feel like more of a teacher when you're reaching so many more people? And I don't know if you had this experience, but I remember early on, 2010, 11. So I came, a few years after you on YouTube. Students saying, "Oh, I wish you were my teacher. I wish you were my teacher," over and over again. And then that started to shift to, "You're my best teacher. You're my favorite teacher," you know? And I think that's what we think about going to more virtual worlds and stuff too. I feel like, this is just going to get even more like that feeling of course you're my teacher. Like the whole notion of like having the geographical privilege, the financial privilege to be in a physical room. And this is something, Shelley, I remember we talked about a lot with MOOCs, because we were, and I sort of feel like we're back into, it's another moment here where teachers, because America is saying, oh, a few years ago, teachers wouldn't have gotten together. There was a time where we were getting together in big numbers for things in online classrooms together, and yeah, I feel like that whole idea of you're my teacher could become even bigger with where we're going with technology. I really
That
think so.
said, I have to put add a little asterisk there of that. I realized early on, because among the first people to write to me were teachers, were professors. And even now on my platforms, I have membership programs. Among my members are teachers. So there's this collaboration, the support. They support me, I support them. They're in my membership program. We use the one-on-ones for professional development, but they also, through these interactions, are developing me. And I never wanted to be seen. What hurts sometimes, and it's really awkward, is to get those comments of like, I wish you were my teacher, or you're better than that teacher. I'm like, this is not about me replacing. This is about you can learn from more than, you can have multiple teachers. And then I've got guiding people to other channels or platforms or other teachers out there who can provide something that I'm not, or provide it in a different way. So it's awkward to respond to that, but I do have responses and saying, I'm so happy that what I teach can support and complement, but I'm not here to replace anybody, because I've always wanted to be seen by other teachers as a means of support, not a competitor. So I hope that I'm still able to achieve that, and hopefully teachers see me as a resource that can support them, and also argue that I'm only one person and I cannot give private lessons to everybody. I cannot welcome all these people into my membership program. So they need to have their teachers for the extra practice, the feedback, and the guidance that I'm not able to give, because for some people the interaction does end on YouTube in the comment section, and you will get more from your classroom teacher than from me. So
Shelley, as someone who's worked with so many teachers, what's your take on where things are and where things are maybe going as far as professional development for teachers and more support for teachers?
Well, recently I changed to being online and traveling everywhere and working with lots and lots of teachers everywhere. And I did see, that need, which everyone's brought up, which I think is really important, is the teachers in those specific areas or countries, they connect the way they need to. They have their connection issues, their technology, and they really appreciate events like this because they get to learn for free from incredible minds doing incredible things. So I really appreciate events like this. But one of the things that I really noticed going back into the classroom, and what's been the struggle for me, because I know all the great, things we can do, and then just going back in there and hitting these walls with leadership. And so I love the inspiring story Merrick shared, because that's the kind of leadership we really need in education now. I mean, if we're going to go forward and we have all these teachers, energy, excited to adapt, who have in addition with Jennifer, the adaptability, but it's this passion and drive. Like, you see your student, even if it's that one student who's like, I want to connect more, and these ways to get them to connect. You're willing to answer those emails or go the extra mile and say, okay, let's WhatsApp together. That's what I got to do. If you got to call me, that's the way you're going to learn and connect with me today. That's what we're going to do. But, we need more minds like Merrick that's like, okay, this happened. Let's get together. And in 3 days, I'm going to find a solution. I'm sure you got input from your teachers and everything like that, but is willing to make that, okay, maybe it's scary. Maybe I don't like it. But because I care so much about the students and the teachers, I'm going to figure out how it's going to happen. I'm going to learn about these platforms and things like that. So I think really what I've seen is policy and leadership. If we can get more like minds open with that passion, drive, adaptability, I think that's just going to, push everything forward. That's what I'm really hoping and excited for.
Beautiful. Marek, I don't think you actually told us about what is the most exciting thing that you're working on, and a little bit about what's happening and what has been happening. So let's give you the spotlight.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm not, as you can tell from what I said, I'm not as experienced as you in the world of technology. I've been a teacher for nearly 25 years and a teacher trainer for about 20 years now. And teacher training is kind of like, turned into another passion. So it's all about passion here. And after many years, I remember there was a turning point when Jason invited me to do a webinar for American TESOL Institute. And the turning point was that before that moment, I used to, when I trained teachers for various schools and different places, I would always, after lesson observations, I would give them ideas how to do this and that to make it more student-centered and to make it work more efficiently and so on. Mm-hmm. And then I got that invitation from Jason, and I for like 1 month, I was thinking like, gosh, how to make this webinar really like, effective and to really give people the idea of what is the most important thing for me in teaching. Mm-hmm. And day after day, when I was like looking at the presentation that I made there, I was making it shorter and shorter and simpler and simpler. And then one day, literally like a few days before the webinar, I realized that all of those things I used to tell teachers, like, that rework are great, etc., they had a common factor. And the common factor was the retrieval practice and the way how you work in class, where you rather try to take things out of their mind, their brains, than put it in. And that was the kind of like turning point. I got into cognitive science, got into like, trying to learn more about it. And then I realized that many of the things I used to do were great. This is why they worked. I learned why they worked, yeah. And some of them didn't, so I got rid of them. And then I decided to take an experiment, to do an experiment with myself. So I started learning Italian from scratch. It was a language I had no idea about. Just the days of the week took me a week, okay? And I realized how difficult it is. So I did it traditional way for a few months, went to Italy. I was a massive failure. And I was like, I walked into a shop and I thought I could speak some Italian. I had kind of like, this confidence from somewhere, but it was an illusion. And I couldn't buy anything. I couldn't ask a woman to slice the ham for me. That's just impossible. So I walked out of the shop with 2 slices of ham. And the plan was to make a breakfast for all family. So then I got back and I started getting into cognitive science and I started experimenting. And I found a teacher, my friend is Italian, and I told her, listen, we'll connect online, but we'll learn this way. We're not going to use the book. We're not going to learn like you used to do it. We'll do it in a different way. So in a nutshell, after 4 lessons, I started speaking Italian in sentences, and she was like, oh my God, what's happening here? I'm like, I don't know, but it's like, you see, this really works. So I started getting onto the student's point of view, and this is where many things started happening. Some of the projects I'm into now, I've got that group on Facebook that is called the Big R, from retrieval, of course, Take Your Teaching to the Next Level, where currently I have a group of 1,000 teachers from 30 countries. And I'm trying to step by step show them that retrieval practice works in different subjects, but using it for languages is not like copying and pasting ideas from other language for other subjects, from history and so on. It's totally different thing, and we need to learn it from scratch. I've got that project, a charity project, where I met a fantastic woman at some point on Facebook, Anya, who run the charity organization, and I asked her if I can join in, because there was an interesting thing where she connected schools from different countries online so that they could share the classes. And then I realized at some point that those schools and orphanages in Africa, they have a massive problem, not only with the education, but also with money, because the kids didn't have lunch on that day. They were hungry. You could see they were starving, and so on. And I thought, we've got to do something else. It can't really carry on like that. So after a few days, I had an idea for a project where I decided to train African teachers online, to train them how to run effective online lessons using retrieval approach and cognitive science tools, so that they could start actually working online, earning money, not asking for it, because we know this is like really humiliating thing when you have to ask for money just like that. And also we don't feel confident when we have to give money in those situations. So this started, and I managed to gather a few schools from different countries, and it's basically like worldwide project, and it started working, and they realized, they were like, gosh, this is amazing, because you are there in Poland and we are here in Uganda or Kenya, and we kind of work for you, but you don't take any money for that. You organize people who pay us for that work, and we can make it possible here, pay for the food, get everything we need here to help the places run the schools and orphanages and so on. So you see the potential of technology is amazing, but I'm always trying to put the box upside down, and check, like, how it can work in a more efficient, more effective way. So I try to, whenever there is a new tool that arrives, I try to do something else with it. I don't kind of like, copy the same approach as everybody else, and then try to, like, see where is the real potential of it. And I still haven't found the best potential, the best idea of what I'm doing here with, like, that online adventure. But I love the fact that I can now train teachers in so many countries, which wasn't possible beforehand, that I can do so much for people in need, where it's like, they are at the other end of the world, and I think with most of them I won't even meet them in person, like, in my life. And that thing that I call, for me, creativity. The definition of creativity is the ability to join the dots. So this is what I do most of the time. I see like this thing there, this thing here. Now for me, this is a blessing, because there are so many dots that it's like, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night just to drink some water and think like, gosh, what did I think of that? Why not taking this and that and doing that, like, new thing, and running new stuff together. So something, just a capital. What I am worried about, seeing all this new technology step by step, getting into the classrooms and then changing the whole thing, is that many teachers, many students, teachers, all of us, we kind of like get very attracted with the whole thing, because it's totally new, it's beautiful, it's like, shiny and stuff, and it's interactive. So that I'm worried that in many cases we focus too much on the attractive part of it, and we forget a bit about what is the most important thing in what we do. And for me, the most important thing in what we do is the student's satisfaction, that he managed to produce something, to say something without help, without a book, without anything like in front of him, that he managed, like, at the end of our class, say something and put it all together and feel that pride. Because I remember from the beginning of my Italian course, when I started saying things without any help and without any book or notes around me, when I managed to do it, this is the best moment you can imagine. I really advise everybody to try and step into the student's shoes, but not to go to a training where you have an English teacher who, like, treats you as a group of students because you know English. You should try, learn something that you don't know, and see how your brain works and how your brain acquires it, because only then you know what's happening on the other side when you're a teacher. And this is something I think is missing in many classes that I observe. I've observed like thousands of classes over 20 years time, and very often they are very attractive. It's like boom, boom, like lots of stuff happening, games and everything. But at the end of the day, I'm always thinking, okay, but what actually, where is that pride? Where is that feeling of satisfaction that student has because of learning something and being able to produce it? They are happy because it's attractive and interactive, but that factor for me is just the most important thing in teaching. So I always say that I can sit with somebody in a completely empty room and without any teaching aids, without anything at all. And I can engage that person in like 60, 90 minutes conversation / lesson. And because of every 5 or 10 minutes trying to fish out from their memory what they learned, I make them really happy at the end of that time, because they see that they've participated more than myself in that lesson, and they've managed to change something, to learn something, and actually use it and remember it for good.
I want to jump in because it's hard to imagine any teacher not agreeing with you, but how many teachers actually do it? Like you said, like how many classes have you observed? You haven't seen it. Yeah. We happen to have, this happened earlier too, where 2 people were there that just because of the scheduling, they were there. That's sort of why you guys are here together. But Shelly and Jennifer are 2 people that really walk the walk on what you're talking about. And I'd really love to hear what you guys have to say about that. I mean, I can think of examples off the top of my head of things I've seen both you do, which is giving students that voice, giving students that feeling of they've used what they've learned, the whole retrieval approach that Marek has. So love to hear what you have to say after hearing Marek talk about that.
Yeah, and just to add to it all, it's like what I used to be. I used to be a very happy teacher because everybody loved my classes because they were so interesting. There was so much happening, and so on. And then, after some time, I got to that point and realized what is actually the most important thing there. It is not the, what's happening there. It's not the entertainment. If there is some entertainment in it, amazing, okay? But if there is some learning at the same time. But as Jim Scrivener studied that amazing book he wrote years ago, Learning, Teaching. He said a very important thing: teaching doesn't always equal learning. And when I look at the ratio of that, when I observe the classes, very often it's like, if somebody who doesn't really know about cognitive science and how we learn and so on steps in a class, will think like, oh my God, there's so much teaching happening. Yeah. So it's at the same time, probably so much learning. But it doesn't work like that. It's like those proportions are totally different. It's like there can be so much amazing teaching happening, and when you watch it, you're like, oh wow, it's so experienced and it's so interesting, yeah. But you have to be aware how much learning there is in it.
Yeah, Shelly and Jennifer, what's your take on that?
Well, I know I've had the same experience where, like Marek, where he challenged himself to learn Italian, and I suddenly, within 3 months, had to move from the US to Germany, and I did lots of different types of ways to study. One of the ones I liked a lot was this free program where they showed videos, but then they emailed me, and I could kind of interact the way that I wanted to. But was really helpful was just the part of going in and getting over my nerves and being scared and just doing it, And it's really funny because one of the people who came to visit me, someone who came to visit me, was like, very critical about the way that, I would experiment, but I wouldn't get it right. And that was kind of frustrating. So I was like, okay, you try. And this person knew a lot of different languages, had studied so much, wanted to be, an ambassador and stuff. Walked into the butcher, the bukara, or the butcher, and then started to the process of trying to speak, from all the academic, and totally started speaking Spanish. It was, and then realized in a quick way, like how hard it is, like that Marek was saying about the student response, like. And for me, it was that just making mistakes. And I think that's a big deal in education right now, is getting students to, and I think that's so hard in practicing the language, is as teachers, we hear our students and they give an answer, or they use what they are learning. And in that moment in the classroom, they're kind of put in the spot, but they make mistakes, and then we want to correct it so fast, or the students get embarrassed about making those mistakes. And I think from everything that I've learned, it's always been, I need that chance and that support to be able to make those mistakes, and my teacher be there to make it feel comfortable, because then I'm going to shut down and I don't want to do it again. And I think that's one of the draws of online education, or even watching like Jennifer with YouTube. You don't have that, even if it's a great teacher, even if they're entertaining, even if they're wonderful, if there's not that relationship and that culture where you feel comfortable, okay, I want to come back and I want to do it again. And I know I'm gonna make that error or whatever, but I have to do it for whatever. But most of the time I find that the students are left on their own to find that passion and drive to push themselves. Like for me, I was living in the country. I wanted to know, or else I wasn't going to be able to have experiences in the 4 years I lived in Germany. That was my drive. But when I did go in a classroom with the teacher, she didn't care about that drive. She didn't. And it was a formal learning and everything like that. And when I made a mistake, it was like, repeat these words again, or study this chart. And there was no practice. I didn't get to, interact with everybody else. I didn't get to know them. And so I think for me, retrieval, I love it. But the other R I would bring in the class, and I think even with all these technologies, is the relationship. You do not connect with students if you don't know what they're learning, not learning. If you don't know what are the barriers for them learning. And that's what I love about technology, that engages us more. If I can go in a virtual world and I can have a conversation and interact with my students, or they interact with each other and they're having fun and they're practicing and learning whatever, putting it into practice, even if they make mistakes in there, that's relationship. That's more engaging. So I'm really excited about technology that gets us to that point, to where students are able to, feel like they have relationships with either the other people learning, especially the other people learning, but also with their teachers as well. And that gets me to be able to learn so much information quickly about, Jennifer was saying she has 500 students. In the MOOCs I've taught, I've had 500, I had 1,000, and I've had to learn. It's really interesting that now I walk into classrooms, they'll give me 500 students. I teach technology. And by the end of by the end of a month, I know 90% of their names and their faces. But the reason I'm able to do that is because I know what technologies, I know what to do, I know how to communicate. And I use technology a lot to be able to do a lot of this. And I go around and I have conversations, even if it's 30 seconds with them, and because I think relationship is so important.
Yeah. For me, I mean, that was a rare occasion. I don't deal with 500 all the time. I mean, there's a live streams, but most of the time there's small groups. I teach one-on-one in small groups. And I think it's also something to recognize your bandwidth, whether it's teaching, material creation, whatnot. When you do work alone, you have to recognize your limitations. And for me to know what kind of impact I want to have and the quality I want to produce, I do have to be very mindful of my bandwidth and say, no, I'm not accepting private students right now, or no, I have these membership tiers and the top ones are full right now, because I need to know that I'm going to be accessible, because it's that relationship factor that you're talking about. I've always wanted to be accessible to students and always have been. Even in the classroom, I was the person, but they had to find me in that physical school, to find the quiet hallway corner to have that talk with me. But again, I've been online since 2007. Some of the first emails I was getting, they weren't about language questions. They were seeking support, consultations. They were, I was scary because they're teenagers reaching out, and I don't think even their parents realized how many fears and doubts these kids were having. They're looking for support, and so I feel, again, in the online world, I've been able to be more effective that way, building the relationship, but also, again, realizing at different levels of how I build that interaction. But obviously, for those who get to have live instruction with me, I am very much accessible to them, and I think it's a key component because they have to feel comfortable with me. We have to build the trust, and then we can move forward. So I feel that the comfort level for me has always been a major factor. And I'm very, very happy when people comment that I feel very comfortable learning with you. That's what I want, because how can you, with great anxiety, produce your best? So I feel like that's my first task, is to set the person at ease, give them some confidence, give them the security, build that trust, and then now let's move forward. And as for Marek, I totally believe in that theory of you got to put yourself in the student's shoes. Language learning or otherwise, I've blogged about this before, from roller skating to martial arts. Like, you really just got to put yourself in really strange context, because, okay, we're teachers, but we know languages and how languages are learned. How about like martial arts? I've never been kicked or punched before until I put on my little uniform in the Taekwondo studio, and the guy kicked me in the face. I got punched in the stomach. I'm like, whoa, I was ready to cry. And I had to go to the teacher and tell him, like, I am completely out of my element. And you have to think that for some of these students, there's like, the classroom is like, oh, no. Like, they have memories of themselves. Especially if we're talking about adult learners here, not everybody thinks back to their academic days with positive memories. So you have to see where each person is coming from and help that person. If they're not able to quickly reach it on their own, we facilitate that process of coming to a comfort level, peace, security, and it's okay. And so then my teacher in the martial arts realized that, okay, he needs to be conscious of who he's pairing me with and prepare me. And then there are different levels of sparring that we could do, and also recognize where I could shine and let me shine in those areas, because it's pretty good with weapons and it's pretty good with forms. It was like cheerleading, but sparring was my difficulty. And so again, teachers have to recognize the confidence levels go up and down depending on the skill area that you're targeting at the time. And again, awareness of teachers, you have to make it student-centered. Whether you're in the classroom or using technology, it's student-centered, and we must be aware, and we must empathize and think of how to meet their needs.
But you see, Jennifer, if you look at teacher training sessions, and I've been at so many of those, I even been at some of those done by people who wrote like world famous course books, majority of them, they look this way. It's like we become students. I mean, people who participate, trainees, and that person is kind of a teacher, but still it happens in English, okay? And I thought at some point, gosh, that was amazing, okay? And then it was like, let's say Friday evening, and then I had my classes on Monday, and I walked into my class and I thought, I'd like to use something from that, but I don't really know, how to do it. I don't know, how it worked. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was great, but I can't really use it. And that's the whole point. If we train teachers this way, we organize an English lesson for English teachers, it just doesn't work. They have no idea what it is like to be a student in that situation, because they know everything. They're not learning anything. They're just somebody's showing techniques, but they have no idea how those techniques actually work on students, how it is to be a student in that situation. And this is what I find very strange, that for years, so many training sessions that I've participated in as a trainee were done this way, that it got to a point that I realized it was a waste of time. It was a waste of time, because even though I learned some simple, great techniques here and there, I still didn't really know what's happening in students' brain when you are really in that situation on the other side of the desk. And another thing I wanted to add to the kind of link to with technology you talked about earlier on. For me, the most important thing now, when we look at different tools and try to adapt and use them in class and use them when we work, is to find the real potential of that thing for education. And I'll give an example, a very, very simple example of Zoom. Jennifer, you mentioned you use it. I also fell in love with Zoom after testing like 5 or 6 different platforms. I said, no, this is great, because for students, it's really foolproof. It's easy to use, and they don't have to worry about anything. And for us, we can do many things in there. So when we were talking with my teachers at my school, we're looking at it, and I said, okay, what can we do with that chat there? How can we use chat like, for lesson, because usually it's the students who kind of like send messages to one another, and like, when they are not really listening to the teacher. And we were looking at it, and I said, okay, I'll think about it. And then I had a class, and in that class, I thought like, okay, guys, we had some idioms last time, and we talked about them, we used them in different situations. I'm now going to send a private message to one of you with an idiom that we used last time, yeah? When you get it, you have to describe a situation to the others so that they can guess it, and then everybody else, you send it to me as a private message. So that you see, we have like some fun, we have testing, we have retrieval, we have listening practice, we have revision of idioms, and so on, just using that the simplest thing in the world, which is a chat, which you can switch into direct chat with other people. And this is what I mean. Whenever we have something there available, the most important thing for me is to think about it, turn it upside down, see all the sides of it, and think, how can we use it in a different way so that it actually does wonders?
And it's not even just how in a different way. It's a way that you couldn't do in the physical classroom, and that's always been my experience with the best teachers online and the best students online is they're not trying to. And this is why I'm excited about virtual worlds and the EduVerse. I refuse to say metaverse. We are going to make our own space, and not meta, even if it is broadly the metaverse. But it is that there are so many things that you can do to build relationships and have retrieval and all these things that we know are and make things student-centered that you can't do in the physical classroom. It doesn't mean that there aren't great things to do in the physical classroom, but it's a big mistake to feel that we'll really be able to reach everybody the way that they need to be. Certainly not the numbers of people and the people that can't afford it, the people that geographically can't get there, So, I mean, for me, since online teaching started, it was all about that. It was, I'm not a tech person. It's that, hey, we're like Jennifer was saying, like, it's about, trying to people get into teaching because there's a need. You want to satisfy that need. And for me, since getting into it online, it's like, wow, and you just told that story, Marika, working with what's the name of the organization? I don't remember, but you said in Uganda and in Kenya, for example.
Face to face, with the world, yeah.
That's where tech, is exciting to me, and the way I look at where we can go in the EduVerse, it's all about that. For me, it's not about the gadgets. It's not about it's about that, and I've seen students, I see them on a regular basis, including my own kids, where they're building relationships online and with people that are, better than they're building in the physical world. And they would be the first to say that reality is important. They're not talking about like leaving this world to go to that one, but it remains the case that, like, they met people that they wouldn't have met and in the physical world. They made connections they would never have made in the physical world, and those connections are super deep.
Yeah. I wanted to point out what Jennifer said about martial arts. I love Lex Friedman podcast, and the kind of people, he is a scientist, MIT artificial intelligence, and he's bringing the kind of the brightest minds to his podcast. Then there's Joe Rogan, who's also a great conversationalist, and like an interesting character. And so many of these people that they are bringing, they have martial arts background or like a hobby. And I was like, like a big chunk of the podcast, they would discuss martial arts, and then they would go into AI and like all of these things. And I was like, strange. And I had like no idea what's the deal. But then I had on the podcast 2 founders of the dojo. And I started talking to them from the kind of education perspective. And then it hit me, like the feedback loop there in martial arts is incredible, because so often in education we kind of someone falls behind a little bit, and then like you find out too late that they're behind that the whole class or whatever the program went ahead. Like in martial arts, like you literally it's ouch each time you miss something. That's one thing. So kind of the speed of kind of you realizing that you didn't get something, and it's actually painful. The second thing, they all talk about humility, how basically the better you become, the more you get hurt in a way, and you are never there. Like, it's all about the journey. Yeah. And again, like kind of projecting this into English learning, like, and education, and the lessons. So I just wanted to point out that there's so much to actually unpack and think and get inspired from. So Jennifer, it's amazing.
Yes, no, and I'd comment, learning something. I did that once at a teacher training in the school where I knew nobody on the staff spoke Russian. So I purposely started the meeting in Russian to see what they would do and what their reaction would be, and how they reacted to not understanding anything, But even now, I've tried to keep up my Russian skills, and I have a Russian tutor, and it just makes me I have so much admiration for my upper level students when they give a presentation or read something that's not adapted, and I'm like, dang, could I do that? Like, that was pretty good, because I think about the challenge I want to meet as Russian, because I'm not basic. I've slipped. I call myself maybe like higher intermediate, but I've lost a lot. I want to regain, be more advanced. And that humility that I feel after coming from my own tutorial and then seeing what my advanced students are doing, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you realize how incredible you are, what you're doing? So I think also for teachers to realize at all the different levels what their challenges are, not just learning the language, but trying to really get up there with truly high proficiency. That is an achievement. What they're up there. I do need to go pretty soon, but one comment I want to tie into something said earlier: who to bring into a community. I want to say that
I was going to say, don't leave before you answer that question.
I was on YouTube for a long time. It took me a while to get onto other platforms. I was hesitant. I've been on Instagram for a couple of years. I've had to back off now because of other time commitments. But who did I learn from first? The people who were on there, the other teachers who were inviting me to go live with them. Majority of them very young, much younger than me, and I'm learning from them. And I think we need to remember, we need to have all age groups and all levels of experience in the conversation, because I may have 20 some years of teaching experience, but they had the teaching experience on Instagram, and I was learning from them, watching what they're doing, and just feeling more comfortable myself being a guest in their live and becoming more comfortable with the tools. But I feel it's been really helpful in that community to learn from the younger teachers. So I hope that within these conversations, you'll have all kinds of experience coming in from different sources, different ages, and people from different language backgrounds.
Oh, for sure. This is exactly what Nick Peachy was saying earlier. And I know Boom Boom's out there meeting people, and I am too. Just coincidentally, the first teacher that really young teacher that Nick mentioned is someone that I'm working with and making videos with now. So I think we'll be okay, because I think we have that approach. We want young blood. We want to go. We want to work with new people. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Jennifer, is there anyone in particular that you think we should reach out to?
There's some wonderful people out there. I want to say kudos if she deserves a shout out. Teacher Natalie on Instagram. She's doing wonderful things. She's an inspiration to a lot of people. And I think she has a good heart. She has the passion, and she's making use of those tools in the right way.
Yeah. Cool. Shout out to Natalie.
Yeah. Jennifer,
awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
thank you, guys.
And Jennifer, would you, if we invited you to be a guest on Learning with Boom and Fluency show, would you accept?
I would. Thank you, guys.
Good. All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Take care,
have a
guys.
great weekend.
You too.
Okay, you
Bye-bye.
too.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Do you guys have a few minutes, or is your time up too?
Yeah, have some time.
yeah. Same here.
Boom, you've got a couple questions that might be good for these folks.
Yeah, actually, the questions that I had is one thing, but the question that I have now after
let me jump in before I forget. Okay, you think of the questions, okay, and I'll jump in here. Recently, I've taken part in a few really big online conferences for teachers and educators. And in order to prepare for one of them, I did a couple of interviews with some people that I wanted to learn something from different approaches. One of them was like a veteran teacher who he worked for years with cognitive scientists who were in her classroom and were telling her, like, you know, how to do things and everything. That was Patrice Bain, who was the co-author of Powerful Teaching book. I recommend this book to everybody. The other person was Richard Simcott, and he's a hyper polyglot who speaks more or less like, I don't know, probably 20 or more languages fluently. He's got the knowledge, kind of passive knowledge of like 50 languages. And I was, when you were talking about people who we should invite here, I think Richard is one of those interesting cases of students. And I think we need students here as well. And if we need students, I think this is the best example of a student that you can get, somebody who actually managed to master like 20 languages or more, you know, and he knows what works, what doesn't. When I was interviewing him, and I didn't give him any hints. I didn't tell him where we are going. I didn't want to tell him, oh, listen, we're going to talk about cognitive science tools and so on. No, I was trying to drag things out of him. That's like, you know, some ideas, what he does and where it overlaps. Those effective things that he does, where it overlaps with cognitive science. And it was interesting that there were many of them that actually overlapped. And it seemed like he wasn't really aware, like 100% of the tools he was using as for, like, you know, the psychological background of them, but he knew what to do. He knew what worked. And I just had different names for those things, and I understood them in different way. But it was we're all talking, all that time we're talking about the same things. When he mentioned, like, you know, the most effective thing being a sample sentence, you know, using a new structure and different endings, and then the teacher lets you pronounce it first. He gives you an example, and then he can say this sentence and choose the ending for it. And then the teacher would erase some parts of it, and then they would use it in another situation or with a different picture. I said, okay, yes, this is what I mean. We've got model language and retrieval like at the same moment. So he subconsciously uses those things, and he knows what works and what doesn't, and he only uses the effective tools for learning. So this is what I'm thinking, like, you know, if in that whole group of interesting people who are just simplified on the other side of the desk, we should also have a student like that in a team.
Yeah, totally. Point taken. And let's create the kind of the format, the container, to start bringing students' voices and opinions. And definitely one thing that we have in mind is that together we should start rolling out some products and collaborations and things that we can co-build, and immediately building that feedback loop with the students that will be rolling it out for, and then basically kind of doing it together, going through and iterating. This is definitely something that we should be doing, and it'll be so interesting. Kind of make it live and make it available for people to see, maybe even like the life cycle of the product, that like how we brainstorm, how we refine the idea, how we get together, how we actually build it, how we roll it out to students, how we make it better, how it succeeds or fails. I think this can also be really inspiring and educational in many ways for a lot of teachers, educators out there.
Educational, and also a way to make money too. Create to earn.
Absolutely.
Not just play to earn. It doesn't have to be just play to earn. It can be create to earn.
It should be. Guys, I think the last question that I have, because I've been thinking to a lot of people, especially this group of people that we just had, are like kind of seem like the most successful, accomplished, amazing people in education. At the same time, we know how how confused often we are. Yeah. So my question is, I think, kind of offering to be a little kind of vulnerable and saying what is the thing that you like are dealing with that you can't figure out at the moment, like what troubles you, what is it that you're like, this doesn't make sense and I need help with figuring
It's
this
a
out.
really great question. Can you put us back on the screen together?
Totally.
Or maybe it's just me, but I love
Oh,
seeing
thank
Marek.
you. Thank you.
I would just want to
Getting
really like
close-ups.
say that I want to focus on Marek.
I love this question, but Shelly is not leaving without telling us her people that she would like to see in our growing group. I mean, there's nobody whose opinion I want more than hers on that. Although she's already given us a lot of the people that are here today. But I'd
I
like
was
to
just
hear
going to
more.
say that. I was like,
Well, but there are
I was
more.
thinking
There are
some of
more.
those people.
There are more, and then I have before you go to Shelly, I just have a little thing I want to say. But I love this question that Boom's asking. So who's going to go first?
Well, I can say, so for me, I've always grown up, my father is very eccentric, and he, I come from a background. He had 5 daughters. I'm Mexican American, so I come from, immigrants, parents that were, from Mexico came. We lived in a very poor neighborhood. Everybody spoke Spanish. But my dad would say every day, he would put me in very uncomfortable situations all the time and say, and every day would tell us, you're going to grow up, you're going to graduate from college, you're going to be a corporate lawyer, every single day. And so for me, there's not anything that, unlike other people that have blocks in their mind, I don't have those blocks. I don't really have those fears. My fear is not to try something. And then my fear is, and also I don't have fears of asking for help when I need it. So that's kind of for me. But right now, what's very exciting, and I've made myself vulnerable, but not in like a scary way. I have a 4-year-old, and I'm raising this, what I'm calling a super child. My
Shout out to Savvy. Shout out to Savvy.
Yeah, Savvy. She is amazing. I mean, this little girl is this, and I know parents feel about that about all their children, but
no, she's exceptional.
She's pretty like amazing. She grabs a microphone. Actually, she started when she was 1 year old. I took her to ISTE, over 50,000 educators in the arena, and she was the interviewer for ISTE. She was an official. We had our badges and everything. At 1 year old, she had a little mic, and she's interviewing great minds. And so now, we put her she's in a bilingual school, and she's learning Spanish, because we mostly speak English, even though, I come from a Spanish background. And so she comes in every day, and her excitement, the other day she came in and she was like, te amo. And then she's speaking to us in Spanish, and how excited she is about it. So I just love learning with her, making me vulnerable, but it's not scary because I'm learning with her different things. And so one of the things we're doing is joining a Tai Chi class. So coming back to that martial arts thing. And I know that's something that I've seen it. I've wanted to do it all the time. And there's, a class that makes it to where both me and her can learn at the same time. But that, I guess if I'm going to be afraid of something, that's good. So, but back to that martial arts thing, and for me, I think it's so important, that balance of technology. So as far as learning new things that would be out of the comfort zone, I feel it's really important to do something that's not related to technology, like where there's no technology really involved in the Tai Chi lessons. We go, we learn, and then we practice. And that kind of, the reason I chose Tai Chi out of all the martial arts is because it makes it to where you're in this spirit. You connect with nature, and I want her to be well balanced. But the other part is that you also learn about, as far as sparring and stuff concerned, with other people involved, like not only how to be very centered and how to be strong in your mind and your spirit, but how to also understand when, and that was something that I struggled with, because when you're trying to transform the world, like all of us here, you always fight. You know, you get in situations where you have to fight things. You have to fight real concerns and barriers. I know you've experienced that probably, Merrick, with Africa. You know, there's some things where it gets pretty scary fights. I know when I was in, and I don't mean like fighting, but you have to break down systems. You have to have so much strength in yourself and believe you can do this. And so I really feel like, you know, with her, I wanted something where I was going to teach her that, where it was going to, and I feel like Tai Chi was one of the martial arts where it's all about like when you know to fight in a respectable, responsible way, when you know how, you know, that you draw your strength, but you don't do it in a way that harms others. And I think that that's what great minds or those that transfer the world do. They do it with heart, you know. And so back on Jason's question, to tie it up, you know, is Stacy Roshan, who's going to be up here later, Buddy XO. Young educator. She wrote a book about tech with heart. She has a little robot with a heart. So I'm very excited to see her up later. My mentors were Alec Quiros and Steve Wheeler. Steve Wheeler, I think, is one of the greatest minds when it comes to technology. And Alec just speaks from the heart a lot. He was involved in a lot of the MOOCs, knows a lot about the ones in Canada and things like that. And so those are the ones. And I would actually really love to hear from that organization, Anya. I think you mentioned, Merrick, about what they're doing in Africa. I was trying to look for a name earlier of a girl that I met. She won an award, a BAMI with me, and she does work in Africa. So I'll write her name later, but she was doing great things in, I believe it's Uganda and Ethiopia, building schools and homes at 13 years old. She's an amazing person. I have to go back to my Instagram and I follow the great things she does every day, but she would be an amazing person to have here. And then there's Joshua. As far as speaking of the students, Joshua has had, and now they're older, they're like 17, 20, you know, but Joshua started when he was 3 years old and he has fed over 1 million homeless people. So it's just incredible, you know, this energy and things like that. So they would be great people to have.
Right on.
Reaching out. Marek, how about you? The struggles, complicated things, insecurities. Tell us all.
Struggles. My biggest struggle at the moment is the fact that I'm trying to put a book together, and it's incredibly difficult to do it at present times where I've got 3 kids, and most of the time it's like, you know, they are now at home most of the day because of quarantine and everything, because all the changes, you know, and stuff. Their school was closed for like nearly 3 weeks, and it's the juggling with everything that I do and trying to, like, you know, to close some things here and there has become really really difficult. So I hope I will be able to make it, to finish it, to publish it, because it's all like, you know, something that I think I haven't heard about a book like that before, because I'm trying to put together into one book different points of view on the learning process and how our brain works and so on, from the teacher's point of view, student's point of view, scientist's point of view, and then merging them all together in the final section, giving, like, you know, the recipe, you know, that, like, you know, that works for everybody, works for those 3 different points of view and merges them together. That's, like, you know, the biggest thing and struggle that is, like, you know, on my list. And I hope I'll be able to finish it before I turn 50.
This is absolutely beautiful, because I now ask these questions and I'm thinking, oh, how can community help us all, you know, resolve it? So on the first part, like me and Jace, we can come to and babysit so that you have that's one thing.
That would be perfect.
Then on the second part, as soon as the book is out, you definitely can count on us spreading the word and making sure it reaches, minds and hearts of educators. And this will be a great mission for us to accomplish, to help you amplify the message. So
I was thinking about that earlier
absolutely
because Nick Peachy's written so many great books, and he was saying, that he has to keep writing another one because he's not making enough money. It's just that you hear this story again and again, and I think it really is back to, like, if we have a community that we're because I don't think most of us do have the same types of we used to call them like PNLs. I haven't heard PLN, excuse me. I haven't heard the PLN thing really feel like charged the way it used to feel. I don't know, Shelley, you'd be a good person to comment on that. But I mean, I definitely felt it's been a few years since I felt like, okay, if I have something, I can just go to my personal learning network. I go to my community and they're going to have my back and I'm going to get my thing out there. I don't feel that so much anymore.
I agree with you. I think when we first jumped in, it was really super exciting. We were all together. We spent so much time working collaboratively. I think the MOOCs really brought you together, and you struggled, but you were with each other all the time. Like, I heard in the first panel they were saying, I think it was Vance who brought it up and said someone has to stay up 24 hours to run this. And that's true. There were so many nights when, there would be a week where I'd barely get any sleep. I'd go to different countries and they all had like Coke Zero, like for me, because they knew this girl doesn't get sleep. This is what she needs. But, I think some, those stopped. And I think funding, one of those issues is definitely funding. I think time. And also, you always have to be, part of running this community. I love this platform because we all get to have real conversations. I feel really engaged. I feel really inspired by, every one I've seen. I felt really excited about. It was easy. I didn't have to go really, I shared on Twitter just a YouTube video so anyone can come in and they can participate. I left a few comments. So that was super simple. It was streamlined. I remember when I used to do the old Blackboard, you used to have to click and then go 10 steps, download this and that. And it was so hard. It was really hard. And I'm a tech person. So I like that you all are trying to bring, you're bringing this community. You're not trying, you're doing this. You're bringing this community together. And it feels real. It feels real, even though, Merrick, I think you're in Belgium, right? And
he's in Poland, actually.
Poland.
Okay. I was reading your bio and it said so you're in Poland, and New York, and then we have Paris. And but we're all here together, and I don't feel that distance, which is really, really amazing. But I think someone who's really good with the books and marketing and kind of PLN kind of way is Mark Barnes. Actually.
I knew you were going to say that.
Mark Barnes is a genius. Let me tell you, he's not very present, but as far as, I've produced 4 books, and Mark Barnes, harsh editor and critic, but it's okay. He made my book what it was. And I will tell you, my first book, it was passion, loved it. Took me 4 years to write, Merrick. And I basically wrote it in 3 weeks, and they said, we're going to drop you if you don't do it. But even though that was passion and everything, and I loved that first book, I will tell you, every year, I've had the last book for 4 years, and every year it's a good paycheck, but also I haven't promoted it much. Because I have all these other things, and Mark has made that. Like, I get surprised every time I get something from Mark, and I'm like, "Ooh, okay." And I am not the best book in that publishing ring. There's some other ones that are amazing.
Yeah. He's doing amazing. He's doing amazing stuff.
His mind is just like, brilliant with this. I think he's gotten a good, and he really cares. It's not that he cares so much about that he's not in the spotlight, but he cares so much. So he has found a great formula. He would be someone to totally tap, because as you know, a writer of his, I would go back to being a writer of his, because he's just, and it's not about the money, but if you write something, you want people to read it. That's always been my thing. I never cared so much about the money. I mean, the money is important, especially when you have family, but that was always my dream since I was 7 years old. I used to think about taking books and then just hiding them in the library, and then having people read them and putting an email or something that, you know, they could write me back my address when I was 7, because we didn't have internet then. And I was like, so that way people could just tell me, were they inspired? Did it change their life or something? So it's just really exciting when you get that. And so I think right now the publishers are really important. Indie publishers would be great to have on here, because I think they do it better. I was with the big publishing company.
Yeah.
And that, I would tell you, I never get any. It's been like so many years. And the first book, I don't get anything from. I think I got a $26 check in 3 years. Not to be a publisher, it was a big deal. Like, I was super excited. But Mark cares. I mean, like, but in these small ones, and I've heard that with a lot, you know, Teach Like a Pirate, Shelley, you know, Burgess, that would be someone probably pretty inspiring, because he knows about all of that too, making the community. Sarah, I have to say, from EduMatch, great mind.
Sarah.
If anyone knows anything about Sarah, the teacher, actually, I should have said her. If anyone knows about PLNs now, Sarah, the teacher, is the one to do.
Sarah, what's the last name?
Thompson, and it's Sarah, SarahDaTeechur. But Sarah, the teacher, she's done EduMatch, and as far as PLN, I have not seen anyone be as great a personal learning network as she has.
What a cool last name, the teacher. The teacher. She's the teacher.
She
can't forget that. Before, you know who I'm chatting with on Facebook right now about dropping in, but I don't think she can. Is Dorothy Zimak, Ways Goose Press? Talk about like another indie publisher who knows everybody. Shout out to Dorothy. I'm not sure she can come here, so that's somebody else, definitely.
It's so beautiful. That is what I'm talking about. Publishers, developers, educators, authors come together, and that's the definition of Web3. This is the hope, and this is what we are seeing. And today, Mark, in the first episode, he was like, after he listened to all the introductions, he's like, "Oh, guys, I don't belong here. Like, you're so wonderful." And I'm like, "Mark, excuse me, you are so amazing. What are you saying?" Yeah. So that's so cool to see you guys cross-reference each other, and kind of plus to be vulnerable and saying what we are concerned about. Isn't it so great to be able to say, "Hey guys, I can figure this out," and then all the guys, and like, it's in our nature. We are educators. We are there to help each other, like humans and each other.
Just to show you, like, you know, the other side of the thing, because it's all with Shelley was talking about the whole, like, you know, world of creating a book, like, you know, publishing and everything. I'll tell you quickly one thing from the other side of, like, you know, what it looks like currently for me, like trying to do anything with it. So during the summer, for 6 weeks, me and my family, we moved to the seaside. I'm very lucky because my in-laws have got like a small holiday house, and it's basically near the woods. It's not in a tourist area, so it's like totally quiet place and everything, like nothing really happening. There's a garden, so we had all veggies and everything. So and I knew I wanted to start working there because I already had lots of ideas. I brought, like, you know, the whole suitcase full of books, you know, and stuff. Yeah. So this is the reality. I had to start getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning when everybody was asleep. I did some exercise, shower, and then I went out, like, you know, under the sky. Like, I had that small table there, and I had like 5-6 books around me on the laptop. Some people, when they saw me walking by, like fishermen and stuff, they were like, "What the hell? What is he doing there at 5 o'clock in the morning with all those books? Crazy guy. And most of the people thought that I'm like, I'm working in some like corporate company, and I'm like putting together. They told me later on, it's like, why do you work so much? It's like you can't earn for your living. It's like you have to change your job. It's killing you. This is the only time when I can actually do something like that. And I had like 4 hours every morning, guys, before at 9 o'clock everybody started getting up. So for 4 hours, I was usually like alone in the world, and I had the chance like to do all that stuff. So this is the other side of it. This is the making, how the things are made and how they are born. And it's not like that doesn't look that beautiful, and so on. But on the other hand, I always think that this is what you need for your creativity and for something real to be born. Because if I had that situation where I could like have the whole day in a luxurious house, with all the gadgets around me, and like just be on my own and basically like have the most comfortable situation in the world, I probably wouldn't even come up with an idea,
exactly.
and put it all together. It's like this.
But that's why we need all the support, because we've got, and that's why it's good that people, we were talking earlier about having to learn how to market, how to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to teach now, and trying on different hats and having maybe feeling like you're doing too many things. Have I put all my eggs in one basket is an expression that Jennifer often uses when she's talking about this. And we agree, I think, that we need those skills, but we can't do it forever. And we're never going to make money to support ourselves and our families if we're the ones, I remember, when online teaching first started and people were saying, well, that's just what you have to do. And I started thinking, whoa. Like if you're a rock band and you're just like a little garage band, of course, when you have a show, you're the one having to find a place, do the lighting, do the sound, sell the tickets, right? But if you can make it happen, the whole point is there needs to be a point, right, where you're not doing those things anymore. And I wouldn't listen to teachers who are like, no, it's always going to be this way. You have to be a teacherpreneur and you have to do this. It's like, okay, it's going to be a good experience for us all to like learn these things, but make no mistake about it. We've got to drive this to the point where we have enough power collectively so that we are, helping each other make money. And I think that's finally where I think things can go with, like, I joke about like create to earn or whatever, and be like NFTs could be real. I really feel like it's where we can move into a place, but we just have to have a great group, and we have to have our own space that's not controlled by big corporations. Even we might be sharing the metaverse with them, but we can be the EduVerse there. And I want to bring up an example. Really important to me to mention this person to Shelly right now. It kind of connects to what I was saying about how I felt like there was this energy. We were all easily, like you're saying, collaborating on projects. We could go to the 30 goals group, or we go to whatever, like we could go places and find people, and now it doesn't feel like that. Sylvia Guinan, who I don't know if you've been in touch with her or not, but I was in daily contact with her for years, maybe years. And she and I lost touch because she sort of left social media, and I got back in touch with her because of what Boom and I are trying to do, and thinking about EduPunk again, and like the web heads again. That's why I went back to Vance. It's like, it's time to talk to Vance. It's to talk to Heike, like you mentioned, Heike. It's time to talk to Doris. It's time to talk to these people. It's the same thing with people like Sylvia, amazing teacher. Tons of material she could never sell because she was trying to do too many things at once. What happened? Her husband passed away suddenly. She's got 4 kids. She's in Greece. You know what she's been doing for 4 years? She's been teaching around the clock, including like for a Chinese English school. Like, she has not stopped ever to teach. She can't be here right now because she's teaching, but she is not. It is not fair. Like what she's developed, her materials, how good she is as a teacher. She has all this stuff sitting there. She has no time, right? She's like, I'll make a website. I thought I would do this. I thought I would do that. This is what is really inspiring me now. It's like, this can't happen. She cannot be doing that. And it's also, I get excited because I'm one of those people too. Like, I've got all this stuff and I haven't, made what I should be making from it. And I feel like we've got to develop this community where, like, if Merrick puts his book there, we all just, like what we're saying, if it's Sylvia's materials, we are this collective. We've got to make that happen. And I really feel like the EduVerse, like the new technology, it's not something that's going to hinder it. It's on the contrary. It's something that we can use to really make it work.
Yeah, it's like you've met by Jason, because Jason knows that I started that game project at some point a few years ago.
I was thinking about you when I was talking just now about that game. I'll let you talk, but that was another example. Anyway, go.
Yeah.
Amazing game. But people are not playing it all over the world in their classrooms.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they should be, and they could be, and they would be. That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking about now. And I've done a lot of teacher training too, and I've seen people with incredible stuff. It's like, come on, we've got to, that stuff, it's not about like, oh, you shouldn't give it away for free, you should just make money. That's just too simplistic of a way to thinking about it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where it can develop more and we can make it even better and all benefit from it.
And I think in that realm, I should mention another person because, Mark, Sarah, the teacher, they're doing it right. They know the formula. Amazing. Teach Like a Pirate, Shelley, Burgess, those three that I already mentioned. They know the formula. Yeah. They're amazing. They're good at what they do to spread the word and all of this. But another one I should mention that I recently connected with about 2 years ago, saw in the pandemic, we can't do keynotes anymore in America. You do keynotes around, you make good money. That's why I traveled a lot. Aside from my other things, I really supported myself by not even keynotes all the time, but workshops at these conferences. That's why I traveled a lot. Very well. So what happened was there was no opportunity for that. And then if you do online, they don't really pay you much, because they're like, okay, it's an online conference. You don't have to travel. But so Carl Hooker, decided to do a group where we're influencers, and he's gotten us together. He gets us constant work. We work with companies who have that. They're startups, and then we gather together. We have meetings where we're like this in Zoom or Teams, whatever it is, and then we talk to those startups. They tell us what message, and then we craft those messages. So we're influencers in whatever form, whether it be TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn. And then we get their message across and we help them, with that brand selling, even things that cost. So right now there are some products. I work with STEM a lot now. So I went from language teaching to EdTech to now STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And so those things can be very expensive. And I've learned how it gets into schools now. And so that's been like a really great skill. But Carl Hooker, he's amazing with as far as like knowing how to get the word out, getting a team of influencers together. So he would be another mind to also tap into. And he's very inspiring as well, actually. So
cool. And boom boom, this is kind of your world too with Relevant and stuff. It's starting to what she's talking about. I think you want to maybe mention that.
Yeah, totally. And generally, I created a language school that got really popular with developers, founders, investors eventually, because we were able to help them, like craft the story, make a pitch, etc. So now they kind of involved me into their communities and into their companies as a kind of a person that can give an interesting perspective. So I kind of see what the venture Web3 kind of entrepreneurs are up to, and it's amazing how like the tools and the knowledge that they develop there, because they are kind of one step ahead always, they gotta be that we can then now kind of take and acquire. So one thing that they were talking about yesterday is called exit to community. Before, like the companies or products that were built, and another kind of another thing that they do that I think we should take is called venture studio, where a bunch of talented people with complementing superpowers, they brainstorm, they come up with a product, and they kind of make a startup, and then they grow it, and it becomes like its whole thing. They co-own it, and they can also like hire people that are missing, or just plug into the community, into the venture studio to build this thing. So that's one thing that I feel like this should become kind of a venture studio.
Teachers, wow.
For educators. And the second thing is like, what happens then? That you previously it was like you either get sold to a large company, or you make an IPO. So now, all of a sudden, with Web3, there's the third option that is called exit to community, where you basically like these creators that have created and gave the momentum to the product, then share it with the community, like ownership and roles and development, and everyone starts to benefit from it, like in the DAO kind of fashion. And I think this is so promising to us, and it's such a great container that we can take and try and do things. Like we all have products that we can bring.
It's exactly what I'm talking about.
This is something that I always thought. I always thought that I would need something like that for this the game projects that we mentioned with Jason, because this is something. It's not just a game. Jason knows that it's like that actually, like the whole organism of like lots of different things to do.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
And it replaces, it supplements course books. Any course book on planet, it's got its own syllabus, and you can use the whole first idea for me when I created it. I sent a couple of emails to Bill Gates because I wanted him to implement it in Africa, in schools where children wouldn't need books to learn, because that kind of like, the whole, I don't even have a name for that. Like, it's called infinity because it's like, it's the never ending thing. Like, you keep adding things to it. But basically it's something that if a school has it, they don't even need books, because there's like everything you need for like, for a certain level. It goes in levels, and it goes for grammar, vocab, listening, speaking, and so on. There's so many things in it. It's so simple to use and so like, efficient in class, that I thought, okay, I have to find somebody who will help me, like, bring it to the world. I even thought, I don't really want to like make money on it. I want it to exist because I can see it works. And I traveled with my friend who I started with. We went to the UK, so a few different schools there to see how it works. We went to International House in London to present it to teachers and students. We went to Prague, to Czech Republic. And we've been like to 4 different countries. I managed to sell it like, individual copies to schools in 6 different countries, but I never had that kind of a thing that you mentioned, Feder, the organisms, the group of people who know how to do it, because we are not, we don't have that knowledge. We know how to create things. We know how to put it all together, how to make it work, but it's impossible for us to be that other person who can actually implement it, who can make it sell, and just like, complete the whole thing, and make it work. That's something I didn't find. I never found, like,
I would say we are doing it because we need cases. We need to literally handpick the first things that we will run with and give it a shot. We were saying this whole day today that it's there's no learning without mistakes and trying, and it's basically there's nothing to lose and so much to gain. So yeah, let's do it.
Like I said before, the thing I'm most excited about is now a venture studio and exit to community. All these things you come up with, Fedor, are just like, they blow my mind all the time.
But they are what you were doing.
I want to do it
because this is it's the stuff you were doing. you were doing. Not that you're not doing it, but there was a point, and I think it's because where the technology goes like this, right? And
I feel like the MOOCs, everything prepared. I was going to say that earlier, is prepared teachers to have that mindset where we have many hats, we learn many skills for a time like now. And I think that's one thing. See, I don't ever see failure. Like I've told you guys before, I feel like all of those prepared me for a moment in time like this. There's always something in that journey that you were talking about earlier, Fedor, is that it's going to come up in the journey. I may have like a game. I may have gained the skills and the shield or the power. And then later on in the level 10, whatever, that's when I'm going to have to use it. Yeah. And in throughout life. So I feel like all those things, people would get frustrated and say, oh, sometimes I would go to Vance Stevens webinars. And I remember once I did this amazing keynote, had 2 people in it, but I knew it was going to be recorded. I knew later more people were going to be part of it. And it didn't matter if there's 1 person in the room, 2 people in the room, because I know later in time, it's going to impact something. And so I feel like maybe there was that lull, maybe it takes 10 years, but this community, Jason, you're getting like, I'm also blowing up. I already thought you were blown up, but then you're gonna even blow up more.
Well, yeah, but what's interesting is that this is the first this event is the first time since that bubble kind of burst, right, where I felt like I didn't care how many people showed up in the audience. I'm not paying attention to. I think that's really important. Like it's what you're talking about just now. If whether the 2 people are there or not. Like in the past few years have not felt like that to me. It's felt like I got to scramble to like how many people can follow and get this and be there. And I think now it's because we sense something's coming. Something bigger can come that we need to get ready for. We need to get all the people together, both for the excitement of it, but also to kind of watch our backs because we've got like the Zuckerverse, as David was calling it earlier, which I love, the motherfuckers in Zuckerverse version of.
I look at that and I feel like it's part like everybody looks at that and thinks it's not humanity. There's nothing human, there's not that realness. So I don't see. I think everyone I talk to just laughs and thinks it's the most ridiculous thing. But here,
well, that's what you have to watch when we have the recordings and the summaries. You'll see we were talking about this earlier. That idea of skepticism. We're talking about this with David and Bree, and we're in agreement that the skepticism, and I was making the point very strongly, so I'll just say it again, but that the skepticism, there should be skepticism of Meta, but the skepticism should not be that the metaverse is not going to happen. The skepticism should be about. Yeah, exactly. So, but that's the problem, is that many people look at that presentation, look at this, is like you're saying, this is not human. This is not. Meanwhile, we've got kids like my kids who have formed relationships on Roblox, who really felt that the connections with people in a virtual space. So it's the skepticism should not be that those relationships and that learning can't happen and everything else. It's that there are people that want to just make a lot of money off you from it and want to control the narrative. That's what we need to worry about.
People are doing, I'll say quickly, great things. I think Facebook, the whole thing, they've gotten it wrong. And they've said for a long time, young people don't live there anymore. They don't. So even though they're making money off another generation that is so totally disillusioned by that.
Yeah, but they're also WhatsApp, right? They're also Instagram, right? I mean, they're gonna buy up
Instagram, but
they're gonna buy up whatever. I mean, I don't know. I wish I felt like we don't have to worry about Facebook because they're out of touch with you. I think they'll use their money to buy up anything they can that will get them back.
Well, that's true, and there's a lot of even Twitter, they buy up things and kill it. I mean, Google, they do that.
Maybe we don't have to care about that if we have a big
Studios can change that. Venture Studios going to crack that.
Like maybe we don't have to worry about that if we've got a big enough collective and we can got each other's back. Well, then we can kind of see where things are going.
Those entities, like you said earlier in the other panel, I don't know if it was Bree or the first one, but it was about, you said something like capitalism is always going to be there. I think you said, Jason, and that's true. That's always, I mean, that's always since the beginning of time. There's always going to be someone conquering something. It's always been throughout history. But there's always the small group of people you read about in history that have done great things and changed things, you know? So, you know, this venture studio, I'm super excited about this exit to community. I think that's going to be really powerful.
Yeah,
guys, I'll take this opportunity to I'm really sorry, I have to say goodbye to you. I've got to get back to my family. So thanks for this. Thank you very much for having me, and I'm really honored to be here with you. So I hope to see you all soon again. Thank you very much.
You will. You have no choice.
It's great learning from you.
We're not going to let anybody. Yeah, and this is maybe a good time to stop because it take a little break because in about an hour, a little bit less than an hour, we have two more wonderful people coming. Stacey, I thought it was Stacey Roshan, but then I heard her say Roshan, so I don't want to mispronounce more names wrong than I already do. But I don't know. Maybe Shelly, you know her better than I do.
Buddy XO on Twitter.
Okay, yes. She said Roshan.
Interrupt you guys because there's something that you haven't seen. I just dropped a link in the chat. I want you to have a look at later. This is how we cooperated. Jason was helping me. He did unboxing for me of my games at some point, and it's amazing that he is one of those people who I found on Facebook, and I just decided, I'll send him a message. I'll ask him about stuff. And he's he's just like me. Whenever somebody's asking something and they want to have a chat, he's so available. It's unbelievable that you do so many things. And this thing, that link I dropped there when Jason agreed to do that unboxing for me, it's just unbelievable. I couldn't believe that he agreed to help me in this way.
I still feel bad because of the tech of it. There was it should have been much better than it was. But I remember that time I was doing so many things at once trying to finish it. You got me a bottle of whiskey after the end, so it was all worth it. Anything for whiskey, man.
That was a great thing because it's we're two different countries communicating on Facebook. And then I liked it so much that the thing that he did, that I got online, ordered a bottle of whiskey, sent it to his house.
This is what it's all about. It's what it's all about. And, we're going to invite Shelly. We're going to put out our first Learning with Boom and Fluency show. You're the first person on the show. We're so excited. Fedor is editing it now, and we're going to invite Marek too, and everyone today and more. But Marek, when you're there, I really want to talk about when I made that video with you a bit, because I have under the bed next to me over 200 card games I've created that I started selling them in New York. I think I told you about this, and they were starting to sell, but I couldn't print enough, and I couldn't make a point. Is what we're saying, and I couldn't do it, and it started to be resentful because it's like nobody could have come up with these games like me. Why should I be the one trying to market them and whatever? Somebody else should be doing that. We should be sharing the money that we make from that. So when you came to me with the games, I mean, if it had been anything else at that time, it was a hard time, but just a combination of your personality and how good your game was, and the fact that I had made those games before. So that's the kind of energy we're talking about in a collective group. Like if we have a big group, there are going to be people all the time that are going to do that. But if we have more support, because in our numbers, we have a name for ourselves. We are not just a Facebook group, for God's sakes, right? We are somewhere else with control over our destiny. I think there's no telling how much we can help one another.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thank you
Tremendous
so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So that was a very nice summary, Jason.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta watch that in a wrap, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I made a rap for today. We haven't shown that rap. Can we just? It's really quick, and Fedor did a great job editing it. Can you put it on, and then we'll sign off here?
Oh.
I know Shelly. Well, I know Shelly and Marek have seen it already, but maybe we can just put it on. It's like 1 minute long.
Yeah, let me try and share my screen. That's
just remember, everybody, it's Shelly Sanchez Terrell, even if I say Terrell, because I need more rhymes with her name.
I don't mind. In fact, I named my name this because everybody remembers it on Twitter, Shell Terrell.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, so
And
there's
it's
my
not my
excuse.
real name.
There's my
I mean,
excuse.
it's not my real last name anymore. I mean,
I
I
get it.
got it
Okay,
from,
yeah, so it doesn't
you know,
matter. We can
so
play with it.
I'm
But that's
okay.
right. Shell Terrell. I mean, you're like Fluency.
Terrell.
You got the rhyme. The rhyme is there. It's built into who you are online.
Okay, let's go share screen.
Here we go. And then
Oh,
we'll catch all of you back in well, maybe not everybody, but in 45 minutes or so, we'll be back on.
yep. Okay.
We reach when we teach, putting fun and learning first. Join us on our quest to traverse the EduVerse. Shelly Sanchez Terrell, I used to call her SST. She truly inspired me to be all that I can be. Van Stevens, EduPunk, pioneer, webhead. Countless online educational initiatives he's led. Mark Barnes, a fighter, calm and brilliant and insane. I've been rolling with him since he started throwing out grades. Jennifer Lebedev, ESL celebrity co-creator. Everywhere you look, you'll find Jennifer imitators. Nick Peachy, a mentor, curator extraordinaire. We built so much knowledge from the jewels that he shares. Marek Speakadelic, kindred spirit, making gains with our love for the arts. We share the same aims. Stacy Rochant, pushing science to engage. Reflecting on my model, makes learning feel like play. Hakel Ibero enhances learning with technology. Guides teachers worldwide to develop digital literacy. Rima Cuban's an expert in mediated communication. She sees how people use it to diffuse information. Vladimir Spivakowski, an education blast. Innovating, teaching, getting it out of the past. David Bostarek, EAPV, our collaborator, exploring different ways to bring excited fellow educators. Theodore Sokolov, aka DJ Boom Boom, ELK and relevant, make future skills bloom. And yours truly, call me Fluency with rhythm and rhyme. You'll relax, repeat, remember, and find your shine. And the next time we do a video like that, and I go like this, I'm gonna have EduPunk
Yeah.
on my hands. I don't know, Marek, if you know about EduPunk. Shelly, do you remember EduPunk? That we're gonna
from a long time ago. I mean,
I'm bringing it back. I'm
uh,
bringing it back. I'm interviewing all the people from that time about the term, if they still use it, how they feel about it. I got to talk to Stephen Downs about it. And basically what I'm discovering is this: people don't really care. They're not really using it. It's time to bring it back. EduPunk. It's coming back.
Okay, EduPunks.
EduPunk for the EduVerse. And look, Marek, you are the poster boy for EduPunk. I mean, come on.
I was going to say that hair. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, good people.
Okay, good
Enjoy
people.
the rest of your day.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you all so
And you.
much. Love the
Thank you.
inspiration.
All right. Peace.
Bye bye.
Stay curious.
Yeah.